least base from there. But tell us a little bit about you. Tell us about BrodieWanKenobi, the channel. How did you get your journey started here in Star Wars and end up to the point where you're at now, where you're, one of us kind of like influencers of the fandom in a way, from Instagram to Twitter. You have a YouTube channel. Tell us about your journey.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, I mean, I've been a fan my whole life. My dad passed Star Wars down to me, and I love Star Wars since I can ever remember. But as far as social media goes and everything, I think it was just The Force Awakens coming back. When that got released, the first trailer and everything, I was so excited for Star Wars. And Star Wars wasn't necessarily something you talked about all the time with, or at least I didn't at school or anything like that. So like I needed a place to talk to people about Star Wars, and I just started an Instagram page and kind of just snowballed from there. But yeah, no, it's been cool to connect with people like you guys. And honestly, that was always my biggest goal, was just to kind of like make friends who like Star Wars, and then opportunities follow when you just kind of do what you love and do it for the passion of things. So and now we're here. Now I'm on the biggest and brightest podcast.
And it's the biggest regret of your life. I feel so bad.
Yeah.
But it's okay. All things work out. Brodie's one of the few people who have actually seen me in person. Palpamemes and Lunga know what I look like, but Brodie knows I'm real. All right.
yeah.
I could be faking
He's real.
these two guys.
He's real, all right.
Still don't believe it.
No,
He's AI.
He's seen me at a bar, I think, or two, where I was drinking and doing dumb things with dumb people.
Being a scoundrel.
Oh, always.
Typical scoundrel.
Scoundrel's Cantina, funny enough.
Oh, by the way, to continue our technical issues, at the very beginning, while you were introducing Brodie, your audio was off going to the stream, just so you know. I fixed it, though.
I thought my audio was off because I didn't see the little bubble around my name.
It was yours. Yes, your audio was off when you were introducing Brodie.
Oh.
But yeah, it was muted an accident in OBS, but I fixed it.
Well,
it's fine.
What a fucking day that we have had here on Chats. Brodie, I'm so sorry. I'm sure you've seen glimpses of the show, but this is 99% of how it goes. Late start and horrible production issues.
Hey, man, I'm right there with you guys. I'm not
I have an excuse. I'm sick as a dog right now, so
hey, it's all good, guys. It's all good, guys. I mean, nothing can be worse than what we're about to talk about, right? I mean, come on now.
Yeah, speaking of production issues, sequel trilogy.
Shit, let's go.
But yeah, no, today's topic, we are talking about the late and great sequel trilogy that Disney and Lucasfilm made. And I mean, it's been a journey. All of us I know have vastly different opinions. Someone like Palpamemes, who has opinions have changed every second of every day of every week since those movies have come out. But
I've matured. All right, let's get the facts straight here. Okay?
It's growing with the movie, right?
Yeah,
more like walking away from it, but sure, yeah.
See, and that's what I can't wait for this prequel fans, is for them to grow up. And
you're never going to see it.
Those,
I refuse.
Yeah, I've noticed I'm one of the only people who got out of that little cult, but it's okay. Let's take ourselves, everybody, all four of us. Take yourself back to 2012. As you guys know, watching the stream, we do this in a little clockwise fashion. So, Lunga, you're going to start us off. Take us back to 2012. Disney just bought Lucasfilm and immediately announced that they are going to make a sequel trilogy. You knew within every fiber of your body that you were going to get episodes 7, 8, and 9. What was your initial reaction to this news back in 2012?
I pulled it out and I forgot to bring it downstairs. I have my expanded Star Wars encyclopedia that was published in 95, and the first one was in 85. I had the one that was in 95, and as soon as I heard this, I was married to my ex-wife still at the time, and my kids were fucking little. And the first thing I said I was actually pie in the sky. I'm like, well, the first thing I said is the rat's buying everything. Because they were buying everything. Okay, they had just bought ESPN, they had bought ABC. I'm like, the rat's buying everything, and they just bought Star Wars. But then I go, oh my god, can you imagine with the scale that Disney does stuff and the production that Disney does stuff, the movies we're gonna get? And I pulled out the encyclopedia and I started going through all these different things, like, ooh, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. Started pulling out my books. Of course, first thing on my mind was we're gonna see Jason and Jaina Solo. That was the first thing that was on my mind. I'm like, we're going to see all this stuff. And I did tell my ex-wife, I'm like, okay, most likely it's not going to be exactly the same. They're going to change some stuff, but this has got to be what they go with, right? Yeah. That's not what happened.
Right?
They had to do it, right? But I mean, you were clearly excited for
Oh,
this
yeah.
announcement.
Super
back then,
excited.
right? I mean, I feel like everybody in the world was. Palp memes. I know me and you and even Brody, we were all very young in 2012.
I
But
would have
I
been
still
12 years old.
Oh man, was I 13, 14? I was around that age. But we were mature, well, not mature enough because you're 12, you're not mature about anything. But we all remember at least the announcement and the knowledge that there were going to be sequel movies. So Palp memes, take us back to 2012 when little 12-year-old Palpa, because you didn't have the meme yet. I don't think memes were a
It
thing.
was not a
back
meme
then.
yet. That is
No.
correct.
But
Well,
back
a
when
little
you
bit
were
of what-
just little Palpa, what did you think?
Yeah.
of
I'll
the
do a little bit of what Lunga did. Star Wars was introduced to me when I was 3 years old. I specifically remember watching The Phantom Menace when I was sick one day, and my eyes would not leave the screen. I remember that exact moment. The first movie I ever saw in theaters was Star Wars Episode 3: Revenge of the Sith in 2005, and it remains my favorite Star Wars movie. I think it's a great film. Also, the nostalgia helps. So once middle school hit, we weren't really getting a whole lot of Star Wars content. Naturally, I kind of fell out of it, but once that announcement was made, I was very young. I didn't really understand a whole lot about what was going on with Disney and Lucasfilm and all that. The thing I really remember would have been was it 2013 or 14 when the trailer released? That would be
2014.
that would be the first Star of the memories I really, really remember. And so once the buyout happened, I just simply was not around looking at Star Wars or anything because I had no reason to at that time. But once that trailer hit, yeah, I was back in the game.
Brody, take us back to 2012 when you weren't BrodieWanKenobi, you were
Oh,
Brody One.
yeah, right. Well, so I was 16 in 2012, and so I was in that period of my life where I was, cool in high school. I was playing sports, so I wasn't. That was probably the one period of my life I'd say I wasn't like super into Star Wars. Actually, you know, like focusing on it, watching content all the time, that sort of thing. But yeah, when they announced they were gonna make the movies, I was obviously excited. I didn't really pay too much attention to it. I played baseball in high school, so I was so focused on that stuff. Um, but then when that trailer dropped for the first teaser for The Force Awakens, and you hear Luke's voice and seeing the Millennium Falcon and everything like that, like I mean, I've been hooked since I clearly remember where I was when I watched it, and I've just been hooked since that point. Back on the train, but it's been definitely a wild ride since that point, and I'm curious to see what you guys think about it.
I gotta say
overall.
that was the biggest thing for me. I mean, because I believe in that ad too, there was also Kylo looking at Darth Vader's burnt helmet too. Wasn't that in the ad too? So those are the two
Yeah,
things that stuck out the most.
Yeah,
I think they showed a
And
shot
the
of his
lightsaber.
helmet. Yeah,
Shot at the helmet, right?
yeah.
So I remember the helmet and the Millennium Falcon flying through Jakku when that got me going. I was like, oh shit. Oh,
Yeah.
I was super excited.
The one thing for
the other
me
big
was
thought when the
Luke.
ad was, yeah. Go ahead.
No, yeah, I was just gonna say the one thing for me was Luke. That I was just like the idea that I get to watch Luke Skywalker on the big screen because I didn't get to do that as with the originals. I was just like over the moon, and I think that definitely gives me a little bit of a I give it points just for seeing Luke essentially, but that was probably my biggest point of like excitement.
And that's what we all wanted to see. The second
this
they announced that in
conversation-
789.
This conversation is going to take a weird turn soon, right?
Yeah.
We can't get tied up in the nitty gritty of each of these with like the Last Jedi. That's a whole nother debate itself. But I'll give my reaction real quick before we move on to the actual movies. I do remember the buyout in 2012. For some reason, ever since I was young, I've always been very active into like pop culture, keeping up with business. I mean, I knew who was running for president in like the Republican and Democrat. Well, not the Democrats at the time, but the Republican primaries of 2012. My mom didn't even know who it was. So I've always been active in the news cycle of the world, and I was always a big Star Wars fan. I watched the originals on VHS. I saw the prequels when they were coming out in theaters, except for the first one, The Phantom Menace, because I was born the night before that came out. And then I remember this buyout happening and being really excited with more Star Wars stuff, because even when there was a dry time with Star Wars, there was never a moment in my life where it wasn't there. I was always watching the Clone Wars when that was releasing. All the new video games that were coming out, I was playing them on the original Xbox, like the Jedi Starfighter series and everything like that. And then I was playing The Force Unleashed when that was releasing, the original Battlefront games. Like Star Wars was always consistently in the background of my life. So when they announced this, I was like, "Oh my god, this is amazing! I can't wait to see." I remember seeing the trailer at my house on my laptop because it was only on YouTube, I think, and that was the quickest way to see it. So I had to get my laptop to watch it on the couch, and I was just so mesmerized. And I think that same year I did create my Instagram account because, like you guys, when all this stuff was coming out, it was really exciting to be back into Star Wars and thinking about the possibility of the future. It's insane that it's been 12 years, but that did inspire me to create an Instagram account and kind of get the ball rolling with there. And it's almost all my life now has just been Star Wars has been a major aspect in the background. But these movies started coming out, the sequels that we all know were going to happen. Everyone knew 7, 8, 9 were going to come eventually, whether by George Lucas or somebody else. 7, 8, and 9 were coming. The first one was Episode 7, The Force Awakens, released in December of 2015. I think to this day it is still the biggest domestic box office movie in America. Like made $2 billion. I mean, it made fuck you money before fuck you money was really a thing anymore. So with The Force Awakens, let's go through each of these movies without the context of the others. So we can't look at The Force. Oh, I hate The Force Awakens because of what happened in the following and everything like that. We got to try to look at each movie individually. And there's a lot to say about all these movies. So we're going to go around again. Everyone kind of give your initial reaction to The Force Awakens when you saw it. And then we'll discuss a little bit more about what we like and didn't like about this movie and so on and so forth into The Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker. So let's go the opposite way now because, Brodie, you are the guest. So let's let you have the first take on this. What was your initial reaction in 2015 seeing The Force Awakens?
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely mixed on it. I feel like right away, honestly, on all three of them. Like I was, out of the theater, like kind of just like didn't know how to feel. I found like watching Star Wars for the first time, if it's a movie or a show, like as a super fan, you overanalyze absolutely everything. So like the first watch is always kind of weird, and especially The Force Awakens being the first major project. I mean, I still really liked it, but I distinctly remember I saw it with my family, my uncle. He was complaining about how, the Yuzang Vong wasn't in it, and like Chewbacca survived, and like all these things from Legends material. And I was like, yeah, man, I get it, but like this movie was still pretty sick. Like I know it wasn't the books, but I genuinely liked, the direction they went. I definitely had some problems. I think the biggest one initially was Rey and how powerful she was. But, again, not to, go into the next movies, but, I think they kind of, shoehorned it in and kind of made it make sense. But I would say overall, I really loved it at first. The Force Awakens is probably tied with The Rise of Skywalker for my least favorite sequel, but I mean, that's how it is.
All right, Papa Memes. 2015, you just saw The Force Awakens. What did you say?
Well, I remember it exactly because in Tulsa, the biggest theater in Tulsa, we had to go see it there, and it was so packed that the only seats that were available for my family and I were in the very, very front row, and it was on a huge screen. And so I just remember watching it like this, but as much as my neck was in pain, I couldn't look away. I was, yeah, I mean, right at 15 years old, it was magical. It's weird because looking back now, The Force Awakens feels like a fever dream rather than a movie that actually happened, because we can talk about the issues that we see with it now, but at the time, there was so much love and ambition and hype and speculation and theories of what could come, what the movie set up, what they're going to do with the next two. But beyond that, I genuinely love the characters. I've really, really liked the character of Rey from the start. I've loved Finn from the start, and we'll talk about him later because I've got a lot to say about him. Kylo Ren, I was like, he's cool. He looks cool. I didn't really have a whole lot going there. I thought he was a little, not my style for a villain, but I didn't dislike him by any means. Han's death, I actually fully appreciated, despite being young. I thought it was a very, very bold move that could turn to a really good story for the trilogy of killing him off. Luke at the end, Luke looking at Rey with complete sadness. I mean, they're definitely shocking to us. Uh, I genuinely loved the movie, and looking back now, I still really like it.
Lunga, how'd you feel 2015 seeing The Force Awakens for the first time?
Super fun, excited. Had chills walking into the theater. Thought I was going to need to get in line, and then I realized, okay, this isn't 1977, 1980s anymore. You don't have to really get in line anymore the way you used to. You'll be able to get in just fine. I'm like, okay. And I was excited. And I went in, unlike other people, because being a reader of sci-fi and fantasy books, and especially generational stuff, I was used to the formula, right? And we hadn't seen it yet in Star Wars. So I already figured, just seeing what the early things were of this movie coming in, I knew there was going to be a handoff, right? You're going to have the new generation and the old generation. And I was fine with that. And I knew of the old generation, I already knew Han Solo was going to be the one to die. And the main reason was because I knew Harrison Ford didn't want to do this shit anymore. So I knew Han Solo was going to die. And I was fine with it, as long as the deaths are meaningful, as long as the deaths make sense, as long as they play into the story. And sorry, as long as I saw all three of them together once on the screen, which didn't happen. I didn't leave disappointed. I was a little perturbed at first with how much of a whiny brat Kylo was. But then I remember the prequels and I'm like, okay, it tracks. So I'm like, it makes sense. You know, I go, it makes sense. And we saw some of the parallels. Rey, and people didn't really, I don't think a lot of people mention this, okay? The whole thing that she was a nobody, right? We know that when it comes to the Force, that it is inherited, right? And it is passed down. So we're like, well, you don't have to be in a family, right? But it's genetic, right? And the stronger your line is, the stronger usually they are in the Force. It is passed down. But the difference between Anakin was he was a nobody. He was a slave boy from Tatooine, right? That just suddenly had these powers. You don't know where it came from. Rey was the same thing. So there's a similar parallel there with her. I was cool with it. I liked Rey. I was happy with her. I liked the little quirkiness that she did. I wasn't upset that she was able to fight, because I'm like, well, she was raised on this planet, fending for herself her entire life. It makes sense that she knows at least how to fight, hand-to-hand combat, okay? The Force she never used, right? Flying the ship, I figured she flew other skiffs and stuff like that, just like Luke did. They explained it later, in the dictionary, the visual dictionaries, that
she says in the movie, I've flown ships before, but I've never left the planet.
Yeah, but in one of the visual dictionaries, they talked about how she found a simulator inside one of the down Death Destroyers.
It was in the book. Yeah, I mean, I don't really count that as, but yeah.
Right. But either way, it makes sense. It's a very similar parallel to Luke, right? That's how Luke learned how to become a great pilot by flying little fucking skimmers and shit. Okay, it wasn't like he was flying military grade equipment, out there to learn how to become a pilot. So there was a lot of parallels, and we all know at the end of the day, it was a rehash of A New Hope. But I thought it was a decent rehash. It wasn't completely like note for note. It had its own story going, and I was intrigued with, okay, so why is Luke here? What's going on with that? Why disappear? Okay, and then when Han died, okay, well, this is son. Okay, so it's not Jason and Jaina. It looks like Kylo's going to be Jason and Jaina in one, because he's going to have a redemption arc kind of deal. Okay, we'll see what's going on. And I was excited. I felt good after watching it. I felt better than I did coming out of the Phantom Menace. Because when I came out of the Phantom Menace, I mean, okay, Qui-Gon was cool, Obi-Wan was cool, but what the fuck? Fuck this kid. Fuck this pod racing. Fuck this alien.
This guy's hated kids since the old days.
Fuck
man.
them kids.
Since he was a kid.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Yeah, well, I mean, but it's clear that The Force Awakens had a better start off to like the trilogy and everything. Like, I remember for myself seeing this in 2015. I remember the amount of excitement and hype going into this. It really did feel like a cultural event throughout the world. And I remember sitting down watching this in, I think it was like December 17th, 2015 or something like that. And seeing this movie for the first time, waiting in line to get decent seats. And it's crazy because I loved it when I first saw it. Well, I mean, no, I think love is a strong word. It wasn't like, oh, this is as good as the originals, but I definitely saw the parallels to it. And I thought it was just a great start to bring Star Wars back for a future and a new generation. It hit a lot of the right beats for me of feeling like it's an adventure, kind of feeling like a documentary of this story told in another galaxy far, far away. And just seeing people go about their lives and the story that they're about to embark on and everything, it really hit all the natural beats that I think it needed to. Of course, there's some complaints that came out after about what they set up, what was going on, and everything. But regardless, I, like everybody else, left The Force Awakens and went, I cannot wait to see what comes next. And I think that's how it should have been set up. But the topic of the day is if the sequels were a success or a failure. And I think that's the important question with each of these movies that we're going to go through. And right now, The Force Awakens, of do you think this was a success or a failure, and why? And I'll start off by saying I actually really think The Force Awakens, out of all the sequel trilogy movies, is the most successful. Clearly, financially, it was, but in terms of what it did for the franchise, waking it up again, bringing people back into Star Wars, making how many theories came out after The Force Awakens of who was Rey, who was Snoke, what's happening next? You know, like there was so much interest in the future of Star Wars that it's hard for me to say this movie was a failure. Now, I know there's going to be some cynics, and I'm not a sequel trilogy fan, clearly, but there's going to be some cynics who go, "Oh, well, let's set up Luke to be what he was in The Last Jedi, and the New Republic was immediately destroyed, and it's just a copy of an." All of that I understand, and I understand some of the complaints, but when you isolate The Force Awakens and when you don't do revisionist history and you look back in 2015 when you saw this movie for the first time, it was exactly what it needed to be to get Star Wars back on the map and get it back into the pop culture and general audiences. Star Wars was everywhere. This movie helped it. The Rogue One came out the next year. If Rogue One came after The Last Jedi, I don't think it would have had the same box office success that it did if it came after The Force Awakens. I mean, it really built up a good amount of hype. So I do think The Force Awakens was a success, and I think that's the most successful movie out of the sequel trilogy. We'll go back round clock and everything. Lunga, Force Awakens, did you think it was a success or a failure?
Yeah, no, I thought it was a success. There were some things I thought they could have did better. I really liked, I liked Lor San Tekka. I liked that addition of him at the beginning. I'm like, ooh, we're getting into some kind of mysticism lore kind of deal. You know, maybe there's gonna be some stuff here. The Wills, maybe we're gonna hear something about that. It wasn't just Jedi Knights, right? It was devout when it comes to the Force and stuff like that. A lot of people are seeing, talking about how, Finn was going to become a Jedi. I honestly, from the get-go, from watching that movie, I thought Finn was going to be more like a, what's his face in Rogue One? You always forget his name. Donnie Yen's character. No, Donnie Yen's character.
Chirrut. The reason you don't remember his name because it was a horrible fucking movie.
No, the name, shut up. It was a great movie. And I love Donnie Yen. But I thought it was going to be something like that. He was going to be like Lor San Tekka. He was going to be this kind of, faithful rather than a Jedi Knight. They set up some good stuff, right? We had an intriguing villain. Who's Snoke, right? I went down that rabbit hole, man. Between that and The Last Jedi, I was that when I saw that your Snoke's theory sucks, I'm like, oh, motherfucker, what's happening? I was that guy because I was, who is this guy? Who is it? And I was one of those people early on. It's Plagueis. It's got to be Plagueis. It's got to be Plagueis. He didn't die. The whole thing of, he knew he could find a way to be dead. Well, he actually did. He's been hiding this whole time. That was all these ideas going on in my mind. I'm like, there's so many possibilities, right? There's so many possibilities here that if any of the ones that I could possibly be, except the one it actually ended up being, I would have been fine with.
I mean, and look, in all fairness, literally any explanation would have been better than just slicing him in half and leaving it be.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, anything. Mace Windu with Snoke would have been better.
Yeah. Yeah. But no, I thought it was a success. And I was excited to see the next movie.
So, Papa Memes, success or failure on The Force Awakens?
Yeah, when we look at success, we have to look at it, and there's different layers and variables to success, what you would consider success. There's personal success, there's monetary success, there's success with the health of a fandom or fan base, whatever, franchise. And overall, the vast majority liked the movie, right? That's why it made as much money as it did. It sparked a new generation of Star Wars fans. It set up a lot of conversation, like Lunga was just talking about all the theories that came out, made a shit ton of money. Can't even fathom how much money it made because it made so much money. And there's no doubt, objectively, yes, it was a success.
All right,
And
Brody,
and
last but
merch
certainly not
was
least.
selling. Kylo Ren
Oh,
helmets
yeah.
were selling.
Oh, dude, the amount
That
of
BB-8
Kylo Ren
stupid ass
stuff I had,
lightsaber was
Do
selling.
you guys remember the BB-8 droid that
Yeah.
you could remote
his
control?
lightsaber
and
in
it
there.
would
Oh,
go
I've
around
got.
everything?
I have him somewhere. I can't find it.
Well, you just moved, so he's
I
probably
know.
got his
Hey,
head
I'm
missing or
working on it.
something.
I'm working on it.
But Brody, take us back to how do you feel about The Force Awakens? Do you think it was a success or a failure? And now that we're 9 years apart from it?
Yeah. I mean, I think definitely it's a success in pretty much all regards, especially compared to the other ones. Kind of like Connor said, there's a lot of variables and specific points that I'm sure you could say were a failure. That movie introduced to the storyline. That didn't really end up paying off or something to that degree. But the movie in itself, I mean, you can't. I feel like you can't call a movie that made over $2 billion a failure. I mean, obviously, box office doesn't mean everything in terms of quality and all that jazz, but I really feel like The Force Awakens as a whole, from the community aspect, it's accepted as like a good Star Wars movie, which is kind of rare, for any Star Wars project nowadays, for like most people to like just be like, yeah, it's accepted as Star Wars and it's a good movie or a good project. So yeah, all around, I feel like out of the three, the four, not my favorite, but definitely the most successful in all aspects.
No, but I like what you said about how out of a lot of the Star Wars projects in recent memory, this one was like very well accepted in the fandom, especially at the time. It is kind of crazy to see a lot of sequel haters
Yeah.
who don't like the movies and kind of make it their personality. They act like The Force Awakens was not very good or panned or
Revisionist
ruined everything.
history.
Yeah,
It is
definitely, yeah,
revisionist
definitely.
history, and it's crazy. And like one thing I kind of want to point out is I rewatched it the other day, and watching it again, and I don't know how I guess I was trying to feel about it. I wasn't trying to put like a certain lens on this and like look at it a certain way and critique it in a certain way. The first 40 minutes, and I think by the minute, I mean literally 40 minutes of this movie, The Force Awakens, is honestly perfect. It was exactly what Star Wars needed to be. It had a lot of similar feeling. It sounds corny, magical. Like I feel like out of all the movies that they did, the three from the sequels, this one had the most Star Wars magic.
Well, it's
At
got the
least,
most mysticality to it, easily.
yes. It was not only
Kylo
that, but,
stopped
like,
laser bolts, bro.
Yeah.
in like the first 5 minutes. But even
I never seen Revan do that.
exploring,
Yeah.
Finn and Poe getting on the TIE fighter together and escaping, like stuff like that, beat for beat was great. And this is going to kind of come out of left field, I think. I noticed for me when the movie started to fall off, when you actually started to get into the groove of who these new characters and stories are, the second Han Solo and Chewbacca were introduced, the movie kind of fell off a little bit for me for a couple scenes. I'm not saying Chewie and Han ruined it. I think Harrison Ford is actually one of the big reasons this movie was so good. Is that Han's character? I don't want to say carried it, but he kind of carried it in a way. But the Rathtar scene and everything, where those two gangs are hunting Han and Kanja Club and all that, I think that scene's actually really bad. Looking back, like it's very forgettable. And there's small little things like that in The Force Awakens that I notice kind of take me out of it a little bit. But then it comes back when it comes to Maz Kanata's castle and everything like that. This movie really did its best to recapture how the original trilogy felt. Whereas I feel like the ones that came after were trying to tell their own story, which was, of course, the point and the goal. But this one, the way it was done with all the real sets and practical effects and actually using film to make this, it felt the most like Star Wars since Star Wars, almost. I mean, it feels, and this is going to piss off prequel fans, but it feels more akin to George Lucas and original trilogy Star Wars than I think even the prequels do. And I know that's hard to say because George Lucas made the prequels, but other than the Phantom Menace, Revenge of the Sith and Attack of the Clones feel very different than the original trilogy. The Force Awakens feels the most like the original trilogy to me. Do you guys agree with that?
I think that was like their main goal, was to make it like the original trilogy and like make it feel that for the fans, because at the time they really didn't believe that fans liked the prequels. Like that's why Hayden wasn't involved in it. Like the people that we see constantly involved in Star Wars now weren't even in the discussion, because at the time they believed that like fans would hate Hayden being involved in Star Wars, and honestly they might have at the time, but there wasn't like, you know, all these expectations, I feel like. And like you're saying, with the first 40 minutes of the movie, it's developing its own thing and, you know, going with the flow of this new story. There's no threads that we're tied to and wondering about all these theories until Han Solo shows up, because we're okay, now where has he been for the past 30 years, and now where has Leia been for the past 30 years? All these questions start to arise, and now we need answers for all these things. And, you know, like Lunga was saying, you come up with all these theories, theory after theory, and then there's only one direction that they go with it. And then if that's not the direction you thought or you wanted, I feel like that's when you know, the disappointment starts to,
because
add
it
up
wasn't
over and
a
over.
direction they went. It was a direction one person went for one movie, and a direction another person went for another movie. That's
Shall I bring up the Daisy Ridley quote?
Which one?
Shall I bring
There's so
shall I
many.
bring up Mark Hamill saying, "Yeah, when we were filming the ending of The Force Awakens, we got into a complete panic, and JJ had to change the ending to fit Ryan's script." Do we want to bring up the fact that they were having Ryan Johnson write his script before The Force Awakens was even filmed? Yeah. I wonder what changed everything.
Everything changed.
I like what you said, though, Brody. I want to bring up what you said about like the whole, it wasn't, you know, a lot of people got upset, absolutely, because it didn't fit what they had in mind. I think and I'm not saying this is not what you were saying against this, but I think the majority of disappointment people had with The Last Jedi is not that it didn't fit their expectations or theories, is that it felt like a slap in the face, right? Killing off Snoke with giving zero explanation to him, the complete change of Luke Skywalker. And it felt like Finn, for all people. They threw Finn on a side quest that in the end didn't even matter or move the plot one bit. But we'll get to that in a minute.
His arc reset, right? He goes through his arc in the first movie,
and just dip it,
and then
like that.
I'm not going to sit here and act like Finn was perfect in The Force Awakens, because I think there's a lot of mistakes with the writing of him, but he at least had a foundation for an arc and for development there. But
Finn was great in The Force Awakens, I felt like. I think it was
he was great, but there were problems in there that I personally would change.
I didn't see.
He was a little simpy. He's a little simpy.
Yeah,
that makes
way
sense.
too
That
quick.
Even that scene was good.
I'm right there with him, brother. Come on.
You got a cute boyfriend, and she's like, "Oh no, that was good." But let's get.
This guy was a janitor for the First Order. This dude doesn't know how to talk to a woman. Come on. I mean, it made sense.
Well, you know, you got to shoot your shot.
He worked in sanitation. It's not a janitor. We've established this.
All he has to do is use the
mistake.
Force. But no, he was a janitor. He literally said in The Last Jedi that he mopped like the floors on Snoke's Destroyer or whatever. So
that's actually a good point. Ryan Johnson.
Way to bring a man down, Disney.
Not J.J. Abrams.
Let's transition into Episode 8. Of course, everyone's favorite and loved movie, The Last Jedi. We don't have enough time to go into what we thought when it was announced and everything like that. But let's go into what we did with the last one, your initial reaction, whether you thought it was a success or failure or anything like that. But let's start off with the initial reaction to The Last Jedi. Brody, we'll start off with you, and we'll go counterclockwise. What was your initial reaction in 2017 to The Last Jedi?
Yeah, I feel like I was definitely more confused by this one, you know, coming out of the theater. There was more spectacle to it, I think, like more epic moments and a lot more to process. I think like The Force Awakens is a lot easier to take in, you know? So out of the theater, I specifically remember I have a selfie of myself, like my initial reaction. I'm kind of like making a confused face because I literally didn't know what to think of the movie. But, you know, you guys are going to have to hear me out here, all right, on these specific points. But as we've gone along and I've watched it, and, you know, I've definitely, I don't know, I've grown to love it. But I just got on to the next guy.
Oh, come on, man. Be bold here. Come on.
No.
Aspect of it. We'll get into
the initial reaction. That was my.
We have seen your Twitter, so just the only person. If Goldman was here, he'd be right with you. Just explain how much you love it, just like he does. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's a safe space.
Yeah. But we're not going over it. It was the initial reaction. So let's go on.
That was my honest initial reaction. I think I saw The Last Jedi like 3 or 4 times in the theater, and like by the 3rd or 4th time, I was like, all right, this is rocking. I vibe with this one. But I hear all your points, but go ahead.
Top memes, what was your initial reaction in 2017? And don't you fucking say you hated it either. I don't want to hear.
You loved it back then.
Let me speak. All right. Here's my initial reaction. I remember this. So it was a school day. I snuck out of school to go see this fucking movie with my dad, and my mom was there. Yeah.
How do you
so me and
sneak
my
out
mom-
of school if you went with
my
your
dad.
family?
I was thinking
obviously
They never
didn't
called.
sneak
They never called. They
I
never
was
called. They
thinking
picked
the
me
same.
up.
I was like,
They
who'd you
never
sneak
called, and they
by?
just picked me up.
Did they look over and go, "Oh shit, Connors"?
No,
Oh,
hold on.
who's here? We didn't know we brought the kid with us.
Sneaking.
Hold on. I was driving at the time. All right. Anyways, saw the movie,
Answer the question.
and we decided to go eat afterwards. We ate afterwards.
When did you
after
get
The
here?
Force Awakens. We had Cracker Barrel. We ate after The Force
Oh.
Awakens, and we could not stop talking. My dad was a kid. The spark in his eyes, like one I haven't seen in years, right? And with The Last Jedi, we ate afterwards, and there was very, very little talking. It wasn't a whole lot going on. And I asked my dad, so genuinely, what do you think? He goes, like he usually does with movies he hates. Oh, I liked it. It was good. Compared to The Force Awakens, where he was like a freaking 5-year-old again watching A New Hope in the theater. My initial reaction, I was kind of similar to Brody. I was very confused. We will get into my arc that I went through. I ended up really, really loving the movie. And now, sorry to anyone who's disappointed to hear this, I can't stand the movie. Sorry.
Yeah, you got a porg
Welcome to
back
the dark
there.
side. Welcome to the dark side.
I do
Oh,
like
yeah,
the
you got a
porgs.
pork. How you
I
gonna
do.
say?
This bitch was $30. I am not getting rid of it. All right. And it's cute.
It's
That's the one
one of
thing
the
he's
only
supporting.
decent things from the movie. So
No.
yeah, the porgs were cool.
Oh yeah.
The porg is trash,
Thank you.
dude.
Where's Goldman in the chat to be like, you guys
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
idiots. This is why I'm not on the show right now. You fucking
You know, this gigantic fleshless dick was the best part of the movie.
That was a Rise
Fucking
of
Claude.
Skywalker. I'll have you know, not the Last Jedi.
Yeah, whatever.
So wait, who just went? It was Brody. Okay, Lunga.
It's Longa turn.
What
Listen, there was
your
so much.
initial
There was
reaction
so
to
much
this movie?
uncircumcised garbage in both those movies. I forget. Anyway, yeah, no, the movie ended, and I brought my kids. Okay, and my kids are right around all your guys' ages. Okay, my oldest Joseph was born in '94. And my middle son, he didn't really care. He just came because we came. So he was born in '97, and my daughter was born in '98. So they're all right around your guys' ages. And I brought them with. And the movie ended, and my son, oldest son, and my daughter and me were just sitting there. Our mouth was just open. And we kind of looked at each other, and we're like, what just happened? What just happened? Or they're like, I don't know. I'm like, I don't know either. This doesn't make any sense to me.
No way. Disney could have made a bad movie. Who would have guessed?
Yeah, I'm like the movie. The first one was good, and I really felt like, you know what, maybe I just have to watch it again because that doesn't feel right. Something doesn't feel right here. It just doesn't feel right. I couldn't even put my finger on it, and it wasn't this fuck Ray. I couldn't stand Ray, and at the end, and I've mulled this over because I've tried rewatching it multiple times. I have it on DVD. I bought it the moment it came out. I
You get
tried
points
going
for
to the
that,
theater
for sure.
again. I walked out of the theater the second time. Okay. I had a DVDs. I'm like, okay, maybe I just need to like sit down and force myself to watch it. Okay. On Blu-ray. I have not finished a complete second watching of it because I just get so frustrated through this fucking movie. Okay. And it boiled down to the treatment of Luke Skywalker. And it's not the, man, he's supposed to be, fucking omnipotent and unbeatable. And no, I was fine with grumpy Luke if you gave me a good reason for grumpy Luke. You did not give me a good enough reason based on this character's history. And that's what really bothered me. And at the end of the day, that's what makes it so unwatchable. Like even the whole Holdo thing, okay, and it was obnoxious, with her character. But if that was the only part of the movie, I would have gotten through that no problem. And yeah, whatever. I didn't care about her character. And it would have been fine. The movie would have been good. Other than that, visually, fucking stunning. The most beautiful, which is the thing that pisses me off the most, the most beautiful Star Wars anything ever made on screen is The Last Jedi. It is so visually stunning, so eye-catching. You can't tear your eyes away from the screen, except for when you hear the words and you're going, God! That's the problem with it. But the movie was fucking amazingly beautiful.
I hear that. He said the movie was amazingly beautiful.
amazingly beautiful. Just like Lucas said, it was beautifully made.
Visually.
Visually. Only
Nope,
the
I got the
visuals.
quote. I got the quote.
Clip that, chat. Clip that, please. No, I will say when I left the theater, and I have to put this badge of honor on. I was the very first Last Jedi hater. All right, before anyone and everyone, and the only reason I kept this video up is just to prove how right I was. I remember when the trailer came out, and I watched it, and I went, "What the fuck is that?" And, you know, it immediately rubbed me the wrong way. And then I had a friend who knew a guy who knew a guy who fucked a girl who knew a guy. And he was like, "Yeah, bro, I heard that Luke goes crazy in this one. You're not going to like this." I was like, "Oh, shit." But I remember seeing it at the fan event. I remember seeing, like, I think it was like a day or two early. And I remember the movie going on, and just as time was going on, being like, dang, I really don't like this. And like, the cancel bite, like, for me, the movie dragged. I will say, like, even rewatching it just now before the show, I was like, damn, like, The Force Awakens is kind of fun and adventurous, and it's got a good pace of, like, I can't wait to see what happens next. This was like a drama where
It's got Broom Boy.
Yeah, bro, Broom Boy is great. I love that part where they ride off on the horses, and he's like, "Woohoo!"
Yeah, I love how they save the horses, but not the fucking slave children.
Well,
Who wrote that?
It's not about
Who
the
wrote
kids.
that?
It's about making a difference. All right, and this movie.
Yeah, we
made a
can't have
difference.
Finn be confirmed force sensitive. We have to have some fucking kid who's a slave from a different part of the galaxy that we don't even know the name of.
I gotta listen.
Yeah, let me
if you're
finish my
looking
point.
at saving the slave children or saving the animals, and you want to make a difference, which one do you think is the bigger difference?
Let me finish. Let me finish my initial reaction.
I apologize. Sorry about that.
Yeah, you should. You slut. You and your fucking porgs. Even though you hate
It's
this
staring in your soul. Look
No,
into its eyes.
I
It's
don't
like
make eye
Medusa.
contact with those things. No, I vividly remember the very first thing my best friend in high school said when we got over with the movie, and like, it's funny how, like, people say things that you're kind of thinking, I guess, or you don't know how to articulate your thoughts, but then someone says exactly what you're thinking. He stood up, looked back at me as he was standing up, and the first thing he said was, "That was awful." And I lost my shit because he was right. I just was like, damn, like, the whole drive home, we were using Mickey Mouse voices because we were like, oh, Disney, like, screwed you. It was like, oh, you want to know who Snoke is? Oh, and it's like the middle finger every time. Oh, you want to know who Rey is? Oh, the middle finger every time. Like, it was so polarizing. And I was I remember posting on Instagram, I was like, I don't know which is worse, this or the Phantom Menace. And there was a lot of people immediately who were like, you're wrong. This is really good. And then there was just a couple people who were like, yeah, this sucks. And then as time has gone on, of course, we have a very different debate around this movie. But yeah, I will
What I
say initially,
noticed-
I did not like this. I did not like it at all.
That online discourse with it was like this weird. It's like people were so, like, I felt when me and my kid, because my kids, again, they hated it too. And you had this kind of stunned thing, like it can't be as bad as I thought it was. It's like,
Yeah.
well, no, and you wanted to make excuses for it, right? And after a while, you're like, no, like that thing from fucking Office Space, and he's like, someone says you had a case of the Mondays. No, man. No, I believe you get your ass kicked for saying something like that. That's what it felt like after a while. Like, no, man, this was bad. It just wasn't good. It just wasn't good. There's no excusing. And it had this little, like, it just grew and grew and grew. And then finally people came to the realization. They're like, yeah, no, I didn't like it. It was messed
I will
up.
say it took like a couple months, I feel like, for the discourse to really kick up and begin, because at first I think everybody did have to kind of digest it and go see it again and think about it for a minute or two. And then the online discourse started to happen, and it was like people were picking sides almost immediately of like, well, if I like this film, it's because I have to explain it to you because you don't understand why you don't like it. You're not understanding it. And then you had people like me who were like, no, I understand it. I just don't like it. And I think everything with Mark Hamill and him being like, oh, I fundamentally disagree. Like, a lot of that stuff, when we looked back when the movie was released and everything, we were looking at the production, we were like, dang, like, this Mark Hamill saying, I fundamentally disagree with like everything you're doing with the character or whatever, even though he went back and said like, oh, I was wrong. I think him saying that really solidified everyone's opinion on what they felt about the Luke thing. If they didn't like it, I feel like when he said that, they were like, "Yeah, exactly. That's exactly." It's not that it was bad. I just fundamentally disagree.
It's just like the whole. It's like just like the whole fucking myth of what he said thing. Both sides get it wrong. Okay, he did say those things as a fan, as someone who liked Luke Skywalker, not as an actor. Okay, he said those things as, this is what I would have liked, and then he corrected him because he does like Rian Johnson. He doesn't hate Rian Johnson. He likes Rian Johnson, and he, right, he has professional respect for him, you know, and he realized, okay, maybe what I said came off a little harsh. I wasn't trying to say fuck Rian Johnson, you know. So he corrected himself because that what he meant by as an actor, I was wrong because that's not my job. My job is to do the role based on the writer and the director's vision of what it's supposed to be, not what my headcanon is. You know, and that's what he was saying he was wrong about. Not that, oh, you're wrong if you think this is wrong for Luke Skywalker. The motherfucker still feels that way. He still kind of says, it's not really what I would have done. But I respect Ryan's vision. So, I mean, both sides use it, but use it incorrectly.
Well, and I vividly remember which one did, Brodie, were you at the celebration in Orlando in 2017 for The Last Jedi?
No.
Okay, I was there for that one. And I remember vividly watching the panel with Mark Hamill and Kathleen Kennedy, and I think Rian Johnson both were up there. And Mark Hamill said something along the lines of, and I know you can find the clip, and I'm sure people have clipped this, where he said something about like, oh, and, you know, I thought they were going to do this or that with the character. And remember, this is before the movie came out. He's like, but, you know, they did this, that, and the other, and went this way. It did come off as him being kind of negative towards the film. And I remember seeing this in real time where Kathleen Kennedy's like, but it is such a wonderful film. Mark gives a great performance. Everybody give it up for Mark Hamill or Luke Scott. Like,
I remember that.
Yeah, even as a kid, I was like, okay, this is very like mom controlling the situation, PR situation. She was being very professional about it. So I feel like that added to the ill will towards The Last Jedi. But a big conversation that we're having on this show around this is if it was a success or a failure. And I think that's really hard to quantify with this movie. There's so many factors. You know, it made $1.5 billion in the box office, or maybe it was like 1.7.
1.3.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Well,
yeah, 1.333 repeat billion.
Damn. Okay. Well,
Yeah,
lower
700
thought,
plus less. Hang on.
Crunch. Pull that up, Jamie.
The Force Awakens 2.06 billion. So you're looking at $700 million less.
Yeah,
that's a lot of people.
That is, and that I think that's a repeat viewing kind of situation. But financially, was a success. When it comes to a lot of people, probably going to say this one is a failure. They're going to point to maybe Solo not doing so well, or what this film did to the fandom and everything. When you think of these movies being a success or a failure, where do you put The Last Jedi? Longo, we'll start off with you.
This is when you have to start parsing it, right?
Oh,
box office was not a failure. It was not a failure box office. If you look at it from a pure business perspective, they don't care who gets angry about a story or not. Is it putting butts in the seats? Let's do it. So business wise, they don't care. Okay. PR wise, the way that it responded to the initial, and I say initial because some of the real vitriolic stuff didn't start until later. Okay. The initial response were people just kind of saying, I didn't like it, man. It's just, this wasn't Luke. This wasn't, you know, I didn't like the way it went. You know, it's like, I didn't, you know, Rey was nobody. Now what's going on with Rey? We don't know what's going on. There was a lot of confusion, right? And people didn't get it. And, you know, they're like, we like Poe. You're setting up Poe to be this character supposed to be cool. And then he kind of gets shut down and like, he's not part of the plan, you know? And then you do that Superman move with Leia, and it's like, what's going on here? You know, and the way they responded to it was an utter failure. An utter failure the way they responded to it. Even if you disagree with them, this is still your fan base. And I'm not saying kiss their ass. I'm not saying that, but the complete middle finger by people that are supposed to be professionals. People like Rian Johnson, who literally got into fights with people online over this. on Twitter and would literally say, fuck you, you don't like it, too bad. I mean, he was just vitriolic about it. You know what I mean? And it's like, did you just friend your other movies, dude? If you don't like your movies, you shrugged your shoulders. All right, well, whatever. But he was like defending it in a way that it was like personal when the discussion started about these characters. Now, once that started, then the people who were complete assholes showed their true colors and became complete assholes. Okay? Because I'm not going to deny that segment of the fandom doesn't exist. It has a whole fucking name. We know it does.
The fandom menace.
Okay? So, and now there's a lot of them that just feel like I may have felt. I feel like you may have felt only. But there's a good chunk of them that are just fucking assholes. So let's just be honest about it. You know, and this whole respect the fans. It's like, there's a line here. Try to make the fans happy because that's your job as a studio. Okay? But the whole respect the fans, like they have to do this, like they owe you something. They don't necessarily owe you anything. But they you at least deserve a good story and one that tracks with what came before. And when I say what came before, I'm not even talking about the original trilogy. I'm talking about the last fucking movie. Okay? I'm talking about The Force Awakens, which you did here, right? What's the famous quote? Subvert your expectations. Here's the plan that we made in The Force Awakens. I'm going to crumple it up and throw it out the window. Now, what are you going to do now? Ha! I don't know, because I'm not making the third movie. We'll figure it out later.
Well, Falcon Memes, now that you've had such an interesting journey with this, how do you feel about this? Was this a success or a failure, The Last Jedi?
It's a masterpiece of what not to do for a film that's the middle of a trilogy and the 8th film of a 9-episodic saga. The way Rian Johnson went about to write the film was wrong. The way he reacted to the reactions was wrong. The way Lucasfilm and Disney panicked and reacted to the film, which gave us The Rise of Skywalker, was wrong. I don't care how much money this movie made. It did detrimental and severe damage to the fandom, and we are still, to this day, seeing the effects that have occurred because of it. I made a whole video basically talking about that, how it was basically titled How The Last Jedi Changed Star Wars Forever. Star Wars will never be the same because of this movie. You have a large portion of people who were hurt so badly by this movie that they completely cut themselves off from the franchise. And we see that in the box office numbers. We saw that from Solo. We see that in The Rise of Skywalker. Lucasfilm's reaction of panic gave us The Rise of Skywalker, which we will get into later. It gave us the plan they had, and once again, they threw it out. And we're still seeing that once again to this day. The Last Jedi absolutely is a failure by every single metric, but the monetary metric. But in the end, the studio that hasn't made a penny of profit since 2019, it's hard to look at the monetary profit that they did make back in the day and not look at it and say, oh, wow, yeah, you guys aren't doing too hot right now. I wish that movie was done better. It absolutely was a failure. And I'm not saying that means you have to dislike the movie. I'm not saying if you love the movie that you're wrong, because you can look at it subjectively and love it. That's fine. I still like The Rise of Skywalker, even though objectively it's a horrible movie. And I have no problem admitting that. This movie split the fandom into so many sections. Here's the thing. We don't even have sequel trilogy fans. There's a very small number of them. You have fans of The Force Awakens, and then you have fans of The Force Awakens and The Rise of Skywalker, and then you have the middle. You have fans of just The Last Jedi. It is very, very rare to find fans of all three of the movies. That's how much damage this movie did to the franchise.
They can't even, the new fans it brought in. The new fans it brought in can't even agree.
You can't.
Hang on. I think that is a unique case, though. I do think there are plenty of fans of just all three sequels.
They exist, but they are very, very small compared to those who just like The Force Awakens and Rise of Skywalker, or just like The Last Jedi.
I think they, especially in the past year or two, now that we've seen some of these fans start to become active online, it's the same thing that happened with the prequels, where 2015 comes around. Well, where are all these prequel fans? There's a very small minority of prequel fans. Now, fucking even 5 years later, we're getting Clone Wars Season 7. prequels are huge. Everyone loves the prequels. It's such a big thing. Oh, what do you mean? Revenge of the Sith is not as good as a fan. It's also great. I love the prequels
Because they're adults and have money now. That's why.
Exactly. So I think you're going to see the same thing happen with the sequels. But Brodie, because I know you love. You said you initially were kind of confused with The Last Jedi.
Yeah, my head's spinning.
Over time, you've grown to love you've grown to love it. When you look at that, as someone who does enjoy, I assume you enjoy all the sequels, or at least the whole sequels as a whole. Someone who likes it, someone who's part of that fandom, that Palpatine's is saying is, kind of divided on this stuff. When you look at The Last Jedi, do you see it as a success or a failure?
I mean, I definitely agree with you guys' points. Like, objectively speaking, like the terror that it's caused in this fandom, like, is irreparable. So like in that aspect, it is a failure because I mean, I do think you should make a movie that challenges people, like to that will go beyond what they expect or what But if you're gonna make a movie that could possibly alienate, let's just say it's 50% of the fan base, like, I don't think that's a risk worth taking. Financially, obviously, it's clear that it was a success on its own, but even as a fan of the movie, I mean, I've spent countless hours, arguing about this movie and having good conversations, having bad conversations, but overall, you get this like volatile response from people about this movie. And I mean, it's like one of my favorite topics in Star Wars. Honestly, that might be why I like the movie a little bit more, because it is one of my favorite topics, like trying to wrap my mind around like what it is that makes people so against this movie. And like I've heard every complaint and flaw under the sun, and I see those and recognize those, but it is interesting to me. And the success of a movie, people are going to talk about this movie forever. Like it will be a topic of discussion, and that is a success in its own right, but in a lot of the other ways, I feel like, you can chalk it up to being a failure,
And the major problem was the cultural aspect of it. Because let's be honest, like it's easy to blame Rian Johnson, right? It's easy to blame Rian Johnson but here's the thing. Right off the bat, before we can get the culture aspect, it's because there was no plan, right? And that falls on Kathleen Kennedy. Okay? You can't take a movie series like Star Wars, and this is a third part of a trilogy of 3 trilogies, and give 2 different directors free reign to do what they want. You have to come up with some kind of plan. You have to have a showrunner or someone that has
they were trying to do that with JJ,
plan.
Where they were trying to nail down a plan.
Yeah.
But
JJ came flat out and said that he wasn't doing more. That he was only doing 1 movie. He said that. And he wasn't showrunner or nothing.
Let's hold on, guys. Let's.
I know.
Guys,
he handed off notes and this, and then
let's get our facts. Let's get our facts right here, real quick, before we move on, because this really bugs me when people say, the
Rian Johnson defender, right?
Hold on.
The JJ defender. I mean.
No, I am speaking based on facts. J.J. Abrams was hired on to direct Episode 7 and also be the runner for a multi-series project. There was going to be a trilogy that started out with Rogue One. It was supposed to lead into the Battle of Jakku. Everything got scrapped after that. There was a huge lawsuit situation when Harrison Ford got injured severely, and J.J. and his whole crew, they went through the lawsuit, and so that's why he had to step away from Lucasfilm. Daisy Ridley is on record saying that, yes, here's what happened. J.J. Abrams had his outline. Rian Johnson took it, he didn't like it, and he threw it out, right? And that's when he started working with Colin Trevorrow, right? So when we talk about plan, there's a lot of info that there was the overall idea on where
how many notes
was going to go.
I don't care how many notes he left. If the person in charge does not say you need to follow these notes, then there's no fucking plan.
No doubt in my mind. I 100% fundamentally agree with you that Kathleen Kennedy and Bob Iger are to blame for the way the sequel trilogy went. Because at the end of the day, you give a kid a bucket of candy, then you get mad at them for eating all the candy. Well, now, who's the fault?
And from all the stuff I read, Kathleen Kennedy said, "I want you to make your movie, Ryan.
Which is very funny because JJ's films were so heavily meddled with so much studio interference, and then the one movie that caused so much backlash was the one film they just gave to a guy and like, here you go, run with it."
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
But the culture thing I was getting to before we get into all that, the issue with the cultural aspect of it was again, Ryan Johnson getting so involved online with people, which left a bitter taste in everyone's mouth. It's like, really, bro? You can't even just be humble and accept the criticism? You know what I mean? You just got to come at us and start calling everybody who doesn't like it misogynistic, racist, okay? And then other people at Disney started to, Pablo Hidalgo, a lot of people started taking up the same stance, okay? That does not say that there aren't people in that segment of the fandom who aren't. They are. But I got to tell you, during that time, when I was having public discussions online about The Last Jedi, and I was the same stuff I say now, just from a writer's perspective and character arc perspective, you hate women. It's like, motherfucker, I liked Rey. I wanted to like Rey. What do you mean I hate women? Okay, and that happened to a lot of people. And I think it's tossed out far too easy because there are the ones who are blatantly like that.
So funny story. I had. Oh, there absolutely is. I got 2 points I want to bring up. Then we can move on. The first point is, what year did this movie come out?
No, you're gonna bring up the fucking election shit.
Yeah, what was going on?
Yeah, no, it was a tumultuous time in history.
Anything else? I'm not going to.
That is one thing I wanted to bring up because I didn't get to say if I thought it was a success or failure. I will say I kind of like what Brodie was leaning towards too, and some success of this movie, the aspects of it being successful. This is talked about more than The Force Awakens, more than The Rise of Skywalker. When we talk about the sequels, we talk about The Last Jedi. It's kind of like when you talk about the prequels, you're really just talking about Revenge of the Sith. Yeah. When everyone's like, "Oh, I love the prequels," it's like, no, you love Revenge of the Sith. Yeah, I mean, I know you. Like,
or Jar Jar Binks and sand.
Yeah, and that's another funny one too. I've always loved Jar Jar Binks. Shut the fuck up. You're not going to lie to me. I know you're lying. But when it comes to The Last Jedi, when you talk about the sequels, that is a movie you talk about, and this is still so culturally relevant. And like Palpa Memes was saying of what was going on in 2017, throughout the entire world, there was a very big shift culturally. Everything started to change. Whether you think it's everything became woke and PC culture and this and that, everybody, because of how connected online we were, everything changed. And this movie, in a weird way, I think represents a lot of that change. It was funny watching it earlier today and seeing Luke be like, "Oh, what did you think was going to happen here? I was going to come out with a laser sword and face the whole First Order down." It's almost like extreme meta commentary where like Luke is talking to the audience and not Rey, and being like, "Well, dude, like, come on."
You might as well have him look at the camera and wink at it like Jar Jar.
Exactly. That's how it feels. And so that's one thing about this movie that I feel like we have to get credit for and have to say it may not be successful in terms of what it did for the fandom, or, we say it split up the culture, but I think I don't know if it was needed. I kind of wish it didn't happen, but it is a very important and very interesting conversation to see that movie come out at that time. And what I think it really did is, with the Star Wars fandom, it drew the line. It drew the line between two very distinctive mentalities and approaches to Star Wars.
And there was a lot going on. There was a lot going on, like you said at the time, that it just made people tribalism, right? People get into their tribes, and you're either with us or against us. It was Anakin with Obi-Wan. You're either with me or you're my enemy.
I think there's just a lot of like generalization between, when somebody is saying, well, all sequel lovers are this, or all sequel haters are this,
right.
It's like, it's not two-sided whatsoever. I mean, we're all from different generations and different eras and stuff. We all have like our own perspective on it. It's a million-sided, like we've been talking about. There's people who like The Force Awakens, but they don't like the next two. There's people who like The Last Jedi, but they don't like the other two. Like, it's not two-sided. There's all these different sides. And I mean, I like, kind of like what you were saying, like you're having these conversations and, people are agreeing with you, like you're on the same page. And then somebody out of the blues says you hate women. It's like, because there's an association with people who don't like these new movies or The Last Jedi specifically are this type of person, and the people who like it are this type of person. That's just not true. It's like, I personally love The Last Jedi, but I mean, I hear your guys' points, and I don't assume anything about your guys' character because of that, your guys' opinion on it. Yeah. And that's like, I think the difference between a lot of these people online. I think the online culture is the main problem. I've never heard
Twitter.
anybody...
Twitter's hell.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
I've never heard anybody in real life actually like having a hateful discussion
No.
about Star Wars, even the way we're doing it right now. Like we have different conflicting opinions, but it's like you can have a discussion without being hateful or rude or like, and that's I think the real difference and the real problem.
I have
that
never
The Last
met
Jedi started.
a sequel lover in the wild.
I have when I worked at. When I was
well,
in-
you live in Florida. You're by Disney. and
Yeah,
shit,
I
so
live in
it's-
Orlando, so I've met a
Yeah,
lot.
Where
that's
all the
true.
shills lie.
Yeah.
but I
So
will
true. I
say
literally
that-
live in Anaheim.
Oh yeah, see.
Yeah, there you go.
But
Yeah,
I will
I
say,
mean, I will
even when,
say-
like, me and Brody went to Chicago for Celebration. This was right before Rise of Skywalker Episode 9.
Yeah.
So this was right in the middle of all that. Because what year did that celebration happened? 2019, right?
2019,
Chicago.
Beginning
So
of
I
2019.
remember being there and talking to so many different people. And you got to think, this is where all the big Star Wars fans go. If you're a Star Wars fan, you're at Celebration. Like nobody there wasn't a diehard Star Wars fan. And I asked countless people during that like 4 or 5 day event, what'd you think of The Last Jedi? And I kid you not, I'd say 75 to 80% were all doing well, I didn't really like this or that, but it's okay. Like I'm excited for the
We'll
next
see what
one.
happens in
Yeah.
9, right?
Yeah,
but
like,
and we're gonna get into 9, right? Let's
that's
let's
coming up next. But
contextualize
that's
this.
how people were. That's how the real world is. It's not like where it released in 2017.
Yeah.
You had the election. It's either liberal or you're conservative. And I didn't
Yeah.
like The Last Jedi, and I happen to be conservative, or I love The Last Jedi. It's because I happen to be. I think that's where the generalization and polarization.
Yeah.
came
Oh
in.
yeah. People are
that's
much
such a big
more
difference.
vitriolic
I mean,
online than they are in
yeah.
person. But the other
Absolutely.
thing we got to contextualize here is that as much as people complain about JJ after Rise of Skywalker, okay, and the decisions he made there, the fact that The Force Awakens was so well received, and the fact that JJ Abrams does have a pretty good reputation, the fact that he was being brought back for Rise of Skywalker had people. JJ's going to fix it. He's going to retcon it. He's going to change some things.
I
It's
thought the
not too
same
late,
thing.
right?
I thought that
It's
exact
not too
thing.
late. It may not be perfect, but we may get a good story. And that's, but I know Palpatine is going to definitely get into it. It's not his fault. They meddled in everything. They changed his whole story. Yes.
It was Kathleen Kennedy.
But that's why people at Celebration were still kind of positive because they still love Star Wars, man. At the end of the day, they all love Star Wars. That's the thing. Why are they at Celebration? Because they like Star Trek?
They want to
That's
say
Celebration 'cause they like
in a
Star
THX
Wars.
1138 outfit. I was like, oh, maybe he's
Right.
Not really a big Star Wars fan.
They still love Star Wars. And they're like, this is the last shot, right? The last was episode 9. JJ did a decent job with Force Awakens. Let's see if he can fix this. And people were excited, right? Maybe we're gonna find out what Snoke actually was and this and that, and the real menace is gonna come out. And then we got The Rise of Skywalker.
I will say one thing in defense of The Last Jedi is the biggest narrative I think about The Force Awakens was that it was a copy of A New Hope and it was a replica of A New Hope, and
Mhm.
whether that was a conscious decision for them to try to be subversive or whatever with the next movie. I mean, I don't know, but that still is something that I hear today. I heard it today in talking about The Force Awakens, that it's a copy of A New Hope, and there are certain, I mean, there's fairness to that, but that could have made them, I personally think they listen to the fans way too much. Like the online stuff, they hear it and they responded to it with the sequel trilogy with each movie. At least I feel like it's clear with The Rise of Skywalker that they listened to what everybody was saying and tried to play it so in the middle that everything fell flat, in my opinion.
Well, and it's clear they did that with The Last Jedi as well. You saying that they reacted to the online reactions. The movie was originally supposed to release in May of 2017. Like that was an official release date. And when they were delaying The Force Awakens a little bit later, they delayed The Last Jedi as well, and so all the movies became a December release date. Well, I think they delayed the episode 9 after they released The Force Awakens. So the timeline's weird, but one of the reasons they delayed The Last Jedi and it had script rewrites, that's the main reason, is because Rian Johnson said that the original script was much more about the original trilogy characters, and his rewrite was focusing more on the sequel characters because he was surprised with how much love that they got from the online fandom. So even his version of what he was trying to do with The Last Jedi was changed because of fan reaction. And then J.J. Abrams, of course, did
Right.
the same thing with The
Right.
Rise of Skywalker. But let's move into The Rise of Skywalker because it is the last episode of the trilogy. And we could talk about The Last Jedi all day long.
Because
this
we
is
all
the
love
most
it.
recent one. Oh, yeah, no, it's because we're all such diehard fans of Rian Johnson. I love when my expectations are subverted on my steak. I asked for medium rare, sir.
You're
Well,
gonna
it's
get
well
him going
done.
now. Good job, Brody.
But The
Here we
Rise
go
of
again.
Skywalker
Longest
came in
disappointment. Just
2019. Oh yeah, Lunga's face is always just full of disdain and anger for anybody at any time. The Rise of
Only's
Skywalker
used to
came out-
disappointing me. I play that father figure that's just in constant disappointment.
there you
Um,
go.
I
of
need
him.
that. That's he. I think he's
Yeah.
coming back from the grocery store soon. I mean, 24 years. I mean,
Bought
I
that
know
pack of
traffic
cigarettes
here-
how long ago?
Oh yeah, and the milk too. He must have know what
The
happened.
milk?
He smoked the pack on the way back, and then had to go get another one.
Yeah.
And he's stuck on I-4. God help him. But 2019, Rise of Skywalker comes out. I think leading into this, we could all agree the excitement was not the same as it was going into Episode 7 or 8. But this was a film that happened. I'll start off with my initial reaction to this in 2019. Not to say if it was a success or failure, but when I first saw it, I was kind of shocked in a way. There was a lot of things about it that I was like, oh my God, what the hell is going on here? But I want to say I felt happier about it than I did leaving The Last Jedi. But then, like, on the drive home, because I went to go meet a friend in Houston, Texas. So it was like a 4-hour drive for me to go see this movie and then drive back home the next day or in that morning. And I was sitting there driving. I'm like, that kind of wasn't really good. It just really didn't hit. It felt, out of all the new Star Wars movies, the most blockbuster-esque Marvel style. Just it didn't have that sense of wonder or magic, and it had very like corny dialogue and humor. Like it's almost like it was trying way too hard. Like one of my biggest moments was when Zori and Rey met, and Zori's like, "Not that it matters. I think you're pretty cool," or "I don't think you care," or whatever. And then Rey's like, "I care." And it's supposed to be like one of those cool, like cute moments.
That's the line you picked out of all the lines in the movie. That's the one you wanted to choose.
No, but
Yeah, I
hang on,
barely
I'm
even
saying,
remember that.
well, exactly.
I like
You
that
remember it
scene.
because it wasn't good. But
I liked it.
But to me, that's a prime example of what they tried to do with that movie. So initially, I wasn't very happy with the movie, and for 5 years now, at this point, we're going on 5 this year. I'm still. This is the one I watched the least out of all the sequel.
They
trilogy.
fly now.
They fly now. I fucking forgot about that. Oh, I made a whole video about that because it was so fucking bad. But because they do fly now, Lunga, what was your initial reaction to this shit show in 2019?
Somehow, Palpatine returned.
Oh.
That's how they started the fucking movie. Okay, that's how they started the
yeah,
fucking
but Lunga,
movie.
there was a guy in the background who, if you listen really closely, he says dark science, magic, secrets only the Sith knew. So
You know
it's
what it
fine,
felt like
right?
to me? Like when you watch the 80s cartoons, okay? And they go, meanwhile, and they break down the last 10 episodes in like 2 seconds. That's what like it felt like. I'm like, wait, what do you mean somehow Palpatine? I mean, we knew because it was they got a little bump, right? When the trailers came out, Ian McDermott came on the stage and the Palpatine laugh, it got a bump,
Oh, yeah.
right? People were still like
Definitely.
hesitant. They're like, okay, but what are we doing with Palpatine? Then people were thinking Heir to the Empire, he was cloned, maybe, or not Heir to the Empire. What was the other book series where he was cloned? Dark Force Rising, Dark Empire. Where he was cloned, and it's like, okay, well, maybe they're doing that. What's happening? It's kind of, but people were excited. Ian McDermott, they knew what they were doing PR wise. Like, try the old man on stage, and it worked. It worked. People got excited. Then you start watching it, and when it starts with somehow Palpatine returns, that tells me somehow you lost the script, and you just ad-libbed the rest. Okay.
Oh god.
And I as much as I give JJ shit, mostly just because Palpatine gets all cryy every time I give him shit.
I have a meltdown. All right, here.
Yes, I actually like JJ Abrams. Yeah, Star Wars meltdown. Here it goes. I actually like JJ Abrams. I actually am one of the few people. I'm a fan of the Kelvin timeline. I liked the Star Trek Kelvin timeline movies. I thought they were pretty good. I liked his whole Monster
Mission
Universe.
Impossible 3.
No.
8.
The Monster Universe with the
Oh, Cloverfield. Yeah.
Cloverfield, the Cloverfield universe.
Super
The
8,
Cloverfield universe.
Mission
I
Impossible
like
3.
these little things he was doing with Cloverfield. He had this thing online where you were like linking all these movies together.
Yeah, that was very cool.
Right. I liked J.J. Abrams.
Robot.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So, and I liked The Force Awakens, like I said. So when I saw this, I'm like, what happened? JJ. And all I could think about was the whole line that he says, I know how to start things, I don't know how to finish them, which he flat out said. Okay. And then afterwards, we started getting all, which I know you're going to go, you love it because you have it memorized, Papa Beebs, but all the shit that came out afterwards, all the issues they had with productions, all the shit that JJ was going to do and then was rushed and changes his script and all this other stuff that was changed. And JJ pretty much just said, oh, well, let's just put a movie out there. This is what we did.
Said, fuck it, we're just going to do this or whatever.
Right. Well, this is what I was going to do with 8. So let me take that and 9 and just mush it together and make one movie. And it was a mess. It was a hot mess. And I literally could just see JJ going, that's it. You know. Oh, thank you, Grievous Reborn. Much appreciated. $2 super chat.
Oh, the message to Fortnite. Oh gosh, don't even get me started.
Wait, what do you say? Oh yeah, it did come out on Fortnite, didn't it? That is one weird thing is that like even the opening crawl where it was like it says Dead Speak and it brings Palpatine back. It's just so completely out of left field. But Palpatine, because you were just such a fanatic about this fucking movie. What was your initial reaction? Initially, 2019. Don't give me all the backstory about JJ took a piss in 2018 when Kathy called, and that's when he thought it's got to be Palpatine now or something like that. Initial reaction.
I have so much shit. I want to. Anyways,
I
loved it
on The Last Jedi, dude. I held back on The Last Jedi.
I loved it in 2019.
You did not have to, Brodie.
I was with my brothers, and my theater was opening night. It was the first showing in Tulsa at the biggest theater in Tulsa. It was great. My theater cheered. I counted 8 or 9 times throughout, and I know the scenes in which they cheered. And guess the fuck what? They cheered when Rey adopted the name of Skywalker. So fuck that stupid ass video that the Raylos made, where there was literally a private screening, and it was set up and scripted for them to get triggered over it. And now I'm triggered over it because everyone believed it to be an actual public theatrical reaction. No, people loved it in my theater, and I think part of that really, really made me like it as well. It was one of those, kind of community things where I was like, man, this is fun. I had a lot of fun watching it. I really, really loved it. I saw it many, many times in the theaters. So my initial reaction, since that's all I'm allowed to talk about at the moment, was I loved it.
Yeah, thank you for that amply timed response. Brodie, I don't even know if you like or love this film or if you dislike it.
I don't know either, man. I don't really know either, man.
No one does.
What was your initial reaction in 2019?
Yeah. This was the only one of the 3 that I left the theater the first time thinking I did not really like that. Like the first 2 I was like mixed just because again, like you're watching a Star Wars thing for the first time as a super fan, you overanalyze everything. This one I was like, yeah, I didn't really like that. And there wasn't anything specifically. Like, I think it's a fun movie to watch. I just think it was played so safe, right down the middle, trying to save face on all accounts, took 0 risks. And I really believe what you said, only the Marvel-fication of this movie, it did feel more commercialized and like a PR thing versus a creative, artistic, movie. It was designed to kind of wrap this thing up and put it away, and there are elements of the movie that I truly, truly like. But I think initially I was definitely, I was not on board with that being kind of like the full ending of it,
I don't look back on it with a lot of fondness and memories, but
yeah, and
since you do know so much about the freaking what Marvelization of it, was that something that they were going for? Is that true?
I mean, I can only assume. I don't care to say things in public. I don't care because all you're going to get is, oh, what's your source? Well, yeah, fuck. Let me say Joe Schmo is the one who told me this. I don't care to do that. If I wanted to, I would have a long time ago. I don't care. I know that there were about 4 different drafts of it, all of which there was a lot more film that was cut up. And this is not, oh, this is my source. No, we have public actors. We have Dominic on it literally saying, yeah, they cut the movie up a lot. Yeah, they wanted 2 movies, but they weren't allowed to do that. Yeah, there should be an extended I'm sorry, they should have been 2 films. There should be an extended cut because basically all of my scenes were cut out. But no, the script started out very, very different, but kind of similar. Palpatine was still involved. It was more Palpatine. His spirit was within some sort of, my assumption is some sort of Sith holocron. It's calling out to Kylo so it can possess Kylo's body. That's kind of what the Palpatine thing originally was.
Which even that makes more sense than what we got.
It's more like it's like Lord of the Rings when it comes to the ring and Sauron's.
Yeah, Sauron's just this force. He's not.
A part 1 and 2 with
well,
this.
No, because
that would ruin the episodic. You can't title it Part 9, Episode 9, Part 2.
Yeah, but why?
Yeah,
because they wanted to bring JJ back to do it, and he's like, "Well, listen, if we already had Episode 8, and if you want me to follow up, and I can't just change, that does not fit." So I have to.
Episode 8. I hate this opinion that people put out there that Episode 8 set up Episode 9. Where?
No.
Oh, well, it set up Kylo Ren to be the big bad. Literally how? It showed Kylo Ren being a leader, but failing to miserably because he's still an emotional wreck. And then the First Order fail because of
what about Adam Driver's interview where he talks about originally?
Yes,
he was supposed to be
Abrams
reverse Darth Vader.
Yeah. And I don't know why people are acting like this is some new thing. This is what was said years ago. This is not new information. It was said a long time ago.
Yeah, but I mean, but
I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty of stuff because at some point or another, the first few scripts are going to release. They're going to leak just like Colin Trevorrow's leaked, and I have no problem when they do to come out and say, "Yep, there you go." It's going to happen eventually. I don't know how long. It could be 3 years from now. It could be next month. But the scripts are there. A lot of it was filmed. A lot of it was cut. The timing
released the JJ
horrible.
cut.
No, the thing is about the JJ cut is, you're going to get a bunch of unfinished CGI mess that occurs.
It's the new Snyder cut.
Hey, at least Finn gets a proper arc in this one. No, the whole thing was a mess. They wanted 2 movies. They weren't allowed to. The original script was like over 200 pages long. They needed 2 movies. They weren't allowed to do it. And we got the mess that we got now. So.
Well,
also, Marianne is on record saying, we lost the film to Disney for them to do the final edits. Yeah, it's not very common.
Chris Terrio, all right? I don't know who or why anyone thought the guy who wrote Batman versus Superman should close out the Skywalker Saga. I think that's where JJ, you know what I think? I think they fucked up by not having Larry Kasdan write all 3 of these. At least come in as like a story and co-writer. He agreed to do The Force Awakens on the condition he could do Solo, a Star Wars story with his son. I can't remember his son's name, but I think his son's an idiot. But I'm so surprised that they didn't go, "Hey Larry, you want to come back and fix this mess?" Or, "Hey Larry, you want to do outlines for 8 and 9 with JJ?" And you guys actually it's Larry fucking Kasdan, bro. He did episodes 5 and 6, and one of the reasons why those were so well written. Like, perfect guy to have in these situations, and they didn't do that.
Star Wars is not a series for an auteur. That's the problem. That's what Rian Johnson is an auteur.
It was all written, with a collective from George Lucas's original ideas. It from one guy's, plan and vision. When you have too many hands in the pot, it just becomes a mess, and there's just like no way.
People like to compare Batman. Oh, but Christopher Nolan's an auteur. He did Batman though. His Batman trilogy was his Batman trilogy. It didn't connect to anything else.
Yeah.
It was his trilogy, which is why I was said if they did some kind of a Star Wars story that was just Rian Johnson, that was nothing to do with the legacy characters, it probably would have been a well-received movie by many people. But
all right. Well, let's look at this Rise of Skywalker bad boy one more time. Success or failure? And I think for Force Awakens, all 4 of us said success, right? I think that was a unanimous decision.
Yeah.
Did anyone say success for The Last Jedi? I don't think. I said it was successful.
I said success monetarily.
Financially, definitely.
Financially, but are we going to think overall it was a failure?
You see, it's hard to say that because
I
it
mean,
did
it
its
is hard to-
job
even-
as a
I mean,
movie.
Yeah, even
that
but
one's-
even as somebody who loves the movie, like it's hard to like
It's
talk to
divisive. You
somebody
can't
who-
call
yeah,
something a
it's hard to
failure
talk
if
to
it's
somebody
divisive.
who doesn't like it and say it's a success because it's a failure to them, you
Right.
know. And if it's such a failure
Yeah.
it doesn't even have to be a majority, even if it's 20% of fans. If it's such a failure to certain,
And
fans,
conversely,
I mean,
too, when you say it's a failure, there's people that
Yeah.
love it. They're like, "Well, look how much money it made. How can you call it a
Yeah.
failure?
Well,
You're an
yeah,
idiot."
And that's
You know,
how
and
I
it's
feel
like-
because I'm like, I hate this movie in a lot of ways and fundamentally disagree with it. But the fact that I still talk about it, over 6 years later,
there's a
and everything
passion
like
and
that.
there is a love in there somewhere, you know, like
Yes. Well, even though we
you know-
disagree with it, it's because we love this stuff so much. And
Yeah.
like Lungo was saying about the Arturo aspect of it, it really is Ryan Johnson taking these characters we all know and love and go, okay, well, here's my version of things. Like, here's how I would
Yeah.
do it. And then everyone going, wait, you can't take this and do it your way. Like, there's a way we all were going to do it, Like,
Because
what
we
the
don't
hell?
get to see Luke again. That's the thing is, get like Batman, right? Christopher Nolan. I brought it that way. Someone's going to make more Batman movies. You're going to have Bruce Wayne come back as Batman again. You're not going to get Luke at this stage
I
again.
think that's the biggest thing with The Last Jedi is that because it was the middle film, kind of like how Empire is the biggest part of the original trilogy. There's the Luke finds out Vader's his dad and all that stuff, the training on Dago. He becomes a kind of a Jedi Knight. Everything really gets going, and the meat of the sandwich is in that middle film. This was our one shot to get Luke again on the big screen, Mark Hamill, everyone's alive, everything's working out. And we
he
kinda
couldn't even
lost
be there with his sister. He had to force project. He couldn't even be there.
Oh, yeah, didn't he kiss
He
her on the
couldn't even
forehead?
be there.
Did she feel that, or did
Somehow he could pick up dice. He picked up Han's dice and handed it to her.
Yeah,
he could do that as a
still
force
Doesn't
protection.
make sense. Yeah, he just chooses
Well,
when
no,
he's
it does make
physical
sense
and when he's
because
not.
it was the Force. It was the Force. But anyways, so with the Rise of Skywalker, we got to vote because we're not definitive on The Last Jedi, but we all said the Force Awakens was the success. Everybody go around, quick response. Rise of Skywalker, success or no? I'm going to say it's a failure. That's my vote. Failure.
Yeah, I'm going to say quick failure. Even though again it made money, and I made the exception for the Last Jedi. It made money because people were hoping that JJ was going to fix it, and that's why it made money.
Barely cracked $1 billion too, so that money mark.
Right. So yeah, it was a failure. It was a failure on so many fronts. You can't even begin to describe where it starts.
Alpha memes, success or failure?
Yeah, my subjective opinions on the film aside, it was the nail in the coffin for the issues that Lucasfilm brought to the fandom. Lucasfilm and Disney, I should say, absolutely was a failure. It did very, very little good for the what we were hoping would be the resurrection of the fandom, and we're still, I would say, in a dying state. It is a failure. It simply was.
Brodie, success or failure?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is the one that I'm like right down the middle. I don't know because it is a failure for all the aspects you guys have mentioned, for sure. And I mean, as a movie, it's definitely like a mess, but it certainly did not wreak as much havoc as The Last Jedi did in the fandom, and it not quieted everybody, but like it wasn't like it wasn't the best meal of all time, but it was still a decent meal that satisfied us and let us move on from it. At least like it didn't make I don't have conversations about the Rise of Skywalker on a daily basis because kind of like nobody really like has that passion and cares that much about it, whereas and that's from the culture aspect. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say what it did is it shifted the discussion to the powers at Lucasfilm. That's what it did.
Yeah,
it shifted the discussion to what did you guys do? Like, we're not even gonna blame JJ and Ryan anymore. Kathleen Kennedy, what the fuck did you do?
Yeah.
Well, I feel like the way Brodie was describing it too, it was kind of like they ended the conversation with the Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
They were like, it was like throwing something at the wall to just be like, shut the fuck up, story's over, we're done, we're moving on. Like that chapter's closed. The book's done.
Yeah, I feel like
can I just say,
that's true, but that's not really the point of a movie, So I guess in that way, it is a failure, Like
I was just gonna say it's like The Last Jedi is you finding out your girl has completely cheated on you and has been cheating on you for a very long time, but then in your stupid mind you stay with her and hoping she changes because you think you can fix her, and then a couple years later, you see on her phone that, oh, she's actually talking to a lot of dudes again. That's kind of how it is. Then you finally
Jesus
are like,
Christ.
you grow the balls to be like, okay, I deserve better.
That
and you
was
move on.
very detailed.
That's very specific.
Yeah.
Holy fuck,
It's
are we
very
cutting these
specific.
I feel
I was
cheated
waiting
on
for
by
his
Star
voice
Wars.
to pick up speed and for him to start voice
And
start
then you go
quavering.
back to her again. I feel cheated on by Star Wars. I feel they took something from me that I held so dear to my heart, and they cheated on me. They took it and they stabbed me in the heart. All right, what can I say?
Who would they sleep with?
Fucking Maz Kanata.
Oh, great.
Maz
But he
Kanata's
loves-
jetpack.
But he loves the movie because he still has the breakup sex because he can't quit it. That's why he loves the
There's
movie.
something about it.
Yeah.
There's
Sex
something
was
about it. It just
too
keeps
good.
bringing me back.
Crazy girl, just a little bit.
Every so often, I'd be like, "Hey, let me turn this on." No, I actually haven't seen the movie in like a year and a half. I used to watch the movie like once every like quarter of the year. Now, after everything went down,
I watched that. I can watch that one. Believe it or not, as bad as it was, I can watch that one. I can't watch The
because
Last
it's
Jedi.
entertainingly
It's a
bad.
fun movie. It
Yeah.
is
It's
a fun
no,
movie. Like
If I
it is
shut my brain
entertaining.
off
Yeah.
and just watch it like a Fast and Furious thing, right? I like
Background.
people hated the whole thing, but when especially when I saw the recuts of it, people when I Need a Hero playing, when Kylo comes running, Ben comes running in and he turns the Ben and he's taking out the Knights of Ren, which was cool. But then I also said the Knights of Ren are just gone, just nothing. They were pointless. That all three movies, they're just pointless. There was no reason for these motherfuckers, and he just takes them all out and he goes over there and then shoulder shrug. The shoulder shrug was cool. I thought that was cool. I liked it. It's one of the few moments in the movie I enjoyed.
It's an It's a blockbuster
Yeah.
movie. It is very
Yeah.
entertaining. Yeah,
Yeah.
that you cannot.
It has a
deny,
lot
but
of
when you
those. It has a lot of those moments too, where it like whether it's a parallel or something that comes back around to the meaning of the character, like the Han and Kylo moment. I mean,
Well, at the end
those
of the
types
day,
of
it's
moments.
still at the end of the day, it's still a J.J. Abrams and bad robot movie. At the end of the day,
Yeah.
despite all the meddling, all the changes, all the cuts, the everything that went down, it's still J.J. Abrams directing the movie. It's still his vision. I use that term very, very loosely. He makes really good, fun, entertaining films, so it makes sense.
It's also Chris Terrio's quotation mark vision, and I don't mean it in
Yeah.
the same context. I mean, he's a
You can give us your
fucking
vision,
writer.
JJ. Just only use one eyeball. You can't use the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you can use your vision, JJ, if you have Larry Kasdan giving you his glasses to look through. Okay, that's the only time this is acceptable. So when it comes to the sequel trilogy as a whole, though, do you guys feel complicated with this of saying it was a success or a failure? Because I will say, as someone who doesn't like it, it's hard for me to look at it and just go, oh, I'm going to write it off as a failure because I don't like it. Because I'm seeing the same thing I saw with the prequels. These films were very profitable. These films have created an online fandom who I've never met in person. I've never seen Babu Frick on the Eggo Waffles. I've only seen Elle from Stranger Things, so clearly one's better than the other in marketing. But there's people growing in the fandom for the sequel trilogy, kind of like they did for the prequels. Do you think we're going to look back at the sequel trilogy, even today, but maybe even 10 years from now, and go, maybe it was successful? Because we do have so many fans who are big, passionate fans about this, and the new Ray movie they do hits $2 billion because there's so many sequel fans out there, anything like that. Would that make it a success to you guys? I mean, is there any way this is it automatically a failure to you, Lunga, or is there?
It's like the nonsense with the prequels. Okay, I know you guys remember them. You were little kids. I was a goddamn fucking adult. Okay, when the prequels came out. Okay, and my kids, they were little, so they liked it. Okay, my daughter loved Jar. She literally keeps buying me Jar to this day. I'm not kidding you. For Christmas, she got me a Jar Jar Binks fucking keychain. Okay, she buys me Jar Jar Binks stuff on purpose because she likes Jar Jar Binks. So, but it's kind of that guilty pleasure kind of thing because it's her childhood and she remembers it. Okay, just like a lot of prequel people do. Okay, she didn't care about Hayden, but she loved Ewan. Obi-Wan and Ewan was her guy. That's the one she loves.
Oh, I loved them too.
But even she says, I know they're bad movies, but I like them. Yeah. Okay. If you say that, that's fine. But the people who nowadays, this revisionist history that we talk about, the prequels, that they were masterpieces and people were sleeping on them and changing the history, it's like, bruh, if you were looking at it from the perspective of the 6-year-old when you watched it, sure, that's what it looked like to you. Okay? But when you were 6 years old, you weren't reading newspapers. Okay,
Well,
you
you just
weren't
don't
reading.
understand the secret genius behind the prequels. They were secretly genius.
And
It's only good if you
to,
know
to
the
your
secrets.
to that point though, the movies are for kids, at the basis of it.
Yes. Yes.
It's grown with the, since the original
Yeah.
trilogy, obviously. But
Sure.
so
That's why they
if
cut off
kids
a guy's
love
arm
them,
in the middle of the cantina.
right. Like, so if kids love them, does it make it a success? Like, or
No, I'm talking about the kids who were kids then and now are adults and are
Right,
using
right.
their little kid minds as adults.
Yeah,
That's the problem I have.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So do
Like
you
my daughter,
think the
I explained,
prequels
my
are a
daughter-
failure?
I do, because
Overall, yes.
Yeah.
And I really
do
enjoy
because-
Revenge of the Sith. I really enjoy Revenge. It only hates the lightsaber scene. I think it's one of the greatest. The lightsabers in all the prequels are always great. That's the one thing they got
personally
right. I'm like,
don't
this is
like
great.
The Obi versus
See, I love
Anakin,
it.
More.
I
than
love
Yeah,
it.
you don't like
I love it.
Tarzan swings on ropes and going on for 15
I liked
minutes.
it.
And
Listen,
Personally,
I liked
that-
it because
that's
I
my
grew up
thing.
with that whole fucking Vader and
yeah.
Kenobi.
Yeah.
Okay, so seeing that, I'm like, oh, so this is what it was like. Okay, because I was one of the people that, without explaining it to me, I'm like, well, he's an old man and he's half robot, so he can't. So that's why everyone was so slow. And it was supposed to be this dramatic thing. They weren't really going at each other, right? And with him and Luke, you saw it. Vader was playing with him for most of the fight, so it made sense in the context of the movie. Okay, so when I saw it in the prequels, I'm like, oh yeah, this is how the classically trained Jedis were. You know what I mean? And it makes sense. And so I liked that. I liked it. But, I also can look at it and go, these movies are not great. It's just, they were.
Yeah.
The
prequels, I don't think were very successful, but for very different reasons than compared to the sequels. We kind of went on a tangent there. So, Longo, success or failure for the sequels? Did you say failure? All right, heard. Palp memes, success or failure for the sequels?
There's no doubt it was a failure. They caused detrimental damage to the biggest franchise and IP of the world in just a few years. And they're still suffering the consequences now with it. And until some major leadership changes, until we get consistency of quality storytelling, and I'm not saying, oh, this movie was good, oh, Andor was good. No, I mean like 3 years of consistent quality storytelling, you're still going to deal with what we're dealing with now.
Brodie, success or failure for the sequels? Coming from someone who, you like the sequels. It was your take.
Yeah, I mean, I personally think it's a success. Without those movies, we wouldn't be where we are right now. We wouldn't still be talking about them because people would have wrote them off if The Force Awakens was trash. Like people wouldn't have showed up for The Last Jedi and they wouldn't have showed up for The Rise of Skywalker. Obviously, the numbers declined and there's reasons for that, but failed in a ton of ways, obviously. But honestly, this is my opinion. I think any sequel trilogy at the time period that they filmed these movies would have been doomed. We had to skip over 30 years of our favorite characters' lives, Luke, Han, and Leia. Just skip that entire portion of their lives and pick it up at this moment where now we're introducing new characters to focus on and try and jumble it all up into this 6-hour, story where it just doesn't work like that for fans anymore. Like, we need answers, we need depth, we need time to experience these things. They probably could have done, another 6 movies to really kind of get into it. But with the age of the actors, they were stuck and confined into this time period 30 years after Return of the Jedi. And I personally think it's kind of doomed regardless with how many different perspectives fans have. It was just never going to please everybody. And, I think commercially you have to look at the fact that it's a success. They, it spanned into so many different stories and different theme park and whatever, but that's not to say that it didn't fail at a lot of different points, in different aspects.
I mean, look at what it did to a movie about Han Solo. I know there's a lot of factors on why that movie bombed, but can we consider a success monetarily if it's causing other things to flop and other things to lose
There's so many
money?
factors to that, though.
I don't think you can really pin that on the sequel.
I
There
think
is a
The
ton
Last
of
Jedi
factors.
coming
No,
out was one of
you
the biggest
can.
factors in the
That-
solo
yeah,
movie.
that-
Bro,
that-
I don't
that
think the
one's
Rise
a-
of Skywalker
it's-
would have made $1 billion.
The Rise of
though.
Skywalker
Like,
is the final movie in the Skywalker Saga. It's just like the reason Rogue One made $1 billion is because of the love.
There
for
was
The
a
Force
concerted.
Awakens.
I know people don't want to take it seriously because they want to think that they're just in the minority. Okay, but there were a lot of disenfranchised fans that boycotted that movie.
And it
There was-
came
I
out
can tell you
right
there's
after.
Tons of people that had said they were going to watch it. They just weren't going to do it at the theater. They'll wait. They'll pirate it and watch it later and this and that. You know what I mean?
do you think it's
Yeah,
They
that-
did
do you
that
think
on
it's
purpose.
$1 billion worth of fans though? I really
No, because the
think
movie
there's-
wouldn't. The movie wouldn't have been $1 billion.
Yeah,
Yeah,
That-
but that's what I'm saying.
how much-
There's a
how much did
variety
Solo
of
end up making?
factors that,
How much did they make? 350,
400.
400.
400 million, like that's a.
I
really
said this
big
before.
drop-off.
But I said it before. I said Solo could have been a 6 to 750 if it came out, if the Last Jedi didn't happen.
But I think
It could have been a
I
6
think it
to
like
750.
like you're saying though, like I don't think it would have touched $1 billion just because of the
Yeah, no, I
the
never
story
thought
and
that
the
either.
character, you know. But
Right.
I just think, you know, along with the hate of the Last Jedi, not in denial of that boycott aspect, I do think there's just other factors like the marketing in the movie was
That one had a
horrific.
lot of factors.
The-
Yeah, they didn't
the
release the trailer
release-
until February.
The release time was horrific.
People
I don't
were
know
not
why they
liking Alden right from the get go.
right. I don't
Yeah,
know why they moved the
that was the
movie up to
doom to start.
May, right after Avengers, right before Deadpool. Like that was just a terrible decision to do that. One, I mean, building anticipation helps movies in the box office.
Yeah.
Letting this movie come out 5 months after Last Jedi, the most hated Star Wars movie of all time.
It's like they gave
I mean,
up. No, it's like they gave up.
It's like
They
it's
just said,
were
"Fuck it."
like, oh, we just need to get this off our plate so we can.
We
kinda
already
move
spent the
on,
money.
you know, like
Let's just put it out there.
I think
Well,
they
that's the problem with that
handled
film
it
is that it was the
horribly.
perfect storm. It like everything from start to finish was a disaster for that
Yeah.
film. Reshooting 75% of the movie, doubling the budget on it, not
Doubling the
marketing it
budget.
all,
Yeah.
releasing it right after the Battlefront 2 debacle, and then the Last Jedi debacle, and then the Lando's
Avengers.
pansexual thing that happened right before that, and then Deadpool and Avengers, all that stuff. It was the perfect storm. But
Yeah.
what kind of to Brodie's earlier point about the sequels and it's hard to give a finality to it of this was a failure, this was a success. And I see everybody's point of view. I think the big thing with the sequels, for it to be a success, I really do think it has to follow the trajectory of the prequels, where if the prequels had happened and we did nothing else with that era, it would have been a failure. But
Yeah.
because we did Clone Wars, it has
Yeah.
drastically improved its standing and it's brought in a lot of Star Wars fans. The sequels have brought in Star Wars fans. The question is, can they continue into new generations to bring in more Star Wars fans, to have something
Listen.
like the
Yeah.
Clone Wars, to bring more people in?
I mentioned this about the Clone Wars. Okay. The only way it can happen, and even then, it's still not the same situation, but they made the Anakin character more palpable, right? Hayden more palpable with the Clone Wars and stuff. People started liking the character more. If in this Mandoverse and this other stuff, we start getting some more stuff with Luke Skywalker, not all deep fake, please just cast someone. If you cast someone as playing a younger Luke Skywalker, okay, and doing stuff, and again, you know what? Even if they did an animated, right? Let's just do a Clone War route, right? Let's do something with Luke, okay? Let's just go there for now. Even if you did that and you repaired some of the bad will to what you did to the character of Luke Skywalker, because that's where we're going to end. At the end of the prequels, Anakin was Anakin. He became Darth Vader.
Mhm.
At the end of the sequels, Luke just poofs. And his school was
Luke died.
nothing. His school was nothing. He was literally a failure. And his only thing he wasn't a failure as was saying, "You are a Jedi." And then, I mean, that's it. Okay. You know, so you have a lot of work to repair the damage you did to a legacy character, arguably the most favorite character in all of Star Wars.
Yeah. I think a lot is going I mean, this discussion and the idea of success or failure will be a lot will be answered with the Rey movie that will come out in a couple years.
I was going to bring that up. Yeah.
If
They
that
have a
movie
lot riding
makes
on that.
even close to $1 billion, like I think that's a pretty clear success, especially with the state of movie theaters and box office.
They're on a bad track already.
I mean, I don't know. I honestly, I don't. There's parts of me that feel like, I mean, people are going to show up for this movie and it's going to make $1 billion, and then there's other parts I'm like, shit, it could easily make 400.
This is
400
Ryan
million.
Johnson Part 2.
I don't know, man.
It's not.
We know.
And you understand what I'm saying?
Line is so
Even
I
if
agree
the
with
script
Lunga.
is
I
good,
agree with
even
Lunga.
if the script is good, Chinoy. I said this last time we were talking. All right, we were talking about this last time. Leslie Headland, right? Leslie Headland is known for her radical views. Is known for a lot of stuff that she likes making, right? This Acolyte is hugely anticipated. You have barely heard anything from Leslie Headland, except to talk about just tidbits and all about the show. That's it. That's it. Why? Let people judge the show on its merits first. Okay? I'm not saying you can't believe what you want to believe, of course. But when you are that radical and that out there with everything that you're talking about, and it's not, again, that one video is an old one, but the one that I put up where she talks about her, that she's an accidental filmmaker, that was from this past May in 2023. That wasn't 10 years ago. Okay? This is after she was hired to do a Star Wars movie, where I'm an accidental filmmaker and every single one of my movies has my activism in them. That tells me you're going to put that above the story. There's nothing wrong with a message. Lucas is a freaking hippie. Okay? We know his parallels with the Vietnam War, and then it was the parallels with the Bush administration in the prequels. We know that. It's not a secret. But it added to the story. It didn't become the story. That's the problem. And she's starting out with one foot in the grave already, even if the script is good. That's the problem.
Yeah. I mean, I totally see what you're saying. I just think it from what she has said has been just completely blown out of proportion,
You want to know?
And we have no idea what the movie could be about.
I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about that. I'm trying to make men angry. I'm not talking about that one at all.
Complete side tangent with this.
Yeah.
Because
I do have a Star Wars Twitter I want to visit, by the way, before we go.
Yeah, we got to do that in the calendar, and we got to wrap this bad boy up. We're going on too long.
Can I introduce this one? Let's introduce this one.
Hit us with your best shot.
So I found this little nugget. I found this little nugget. I'm glad Brodie's here for this.
All right, let me read this.
You screenshotted that earlier? Come on,
project.
man.
Yes.
What's your favorite Star Wars project that came out in the Disney era? My top 5. Number 1, The Mandalorian. Number 2, The Last Jedi. Number 3, Rogue One. That's fair. Number 4, The Bad Batch. Oh boy.
Wait, here it gets better.
5, Book of Boba Fett. Yeah, I keep scrolling. Yeah, 6 to 10. 6, Rebels. That's fair. I don't like Rebels. 7, Tales of the Jedi. Okay, yeah. 8, Andor. 9, Force Awakens. 10, Ahsoka. Whoa.
What?
Oh my god.
My biggest thing
I'm
about
not one of
this.
these people that pick sides, man.
Here's the thing.
I like that. I'm so surprised that, like, because I strongly, I don't know, Ahsoka I don't have that low, but like I love Andor and I love The Force Awakens, so I
have one problem with this. Only one. I don't care where you put any of them, except
Book of Boba
one.
Fett.
The Book of fucking Boba Fett.
Dude.
You put five. You put Bob.
The Book of Bob.
Bob. You put Bob number 5. That's the problem I have with
Dude,
this.
that is such a fun show, dude. It is Return of the Jedi in a show.
That show caused my friend to quit YouTube for Star Wars.
I mean, that's a little dramatic. I mean, I'm just saying.
No,
he's
he
not
saw
wrong.
that
He's
show
not wrong,
and
but
he
it's
was
crazy.
like, they really messed this story up so badly with The Mandalorian that I have no care to make videos on Star Wars anymore, which I think is reasonable. I hate that show. You can like
a polarizing Star Wars project. The Book of Boba Fett. I mean, like Bad Batch is kind of like most people are like you either like it or you
just
don't
watch
care.
The Bad Batch too. So
Fuck that kid.
Recency bias.
Fuck that kid.
He doesn't.
Fuck Omega.
We're not known fans of the Bad Batch here. But like Andor, we all loved. Mandalorian, great and everything. But like Book of Boba Fett. That's one of those shows we were covering every week when it was coming out, and Oh man, it got worse, and it picked up so much when the Mandalorian episodes happened. But then we got mad of why the Mandalorian episodes were
Yeah,
happening.
no,
Wait a minute, this
the
should be
whole
season 3
aspect
and
of the
Grogu.
structure of the show is horrific, but each individual episode, I absolutely love those episodes. Like, I don't like the fact that the Mandalorian got interjected at all. Like,
Yeah,
that's
that's
kind of
weird.
ridiculous. And shoehorning Grogu into that's pretty ridiculous. Like, but like the first 4, it's almost like 2 different shows. Like the first 4 episodes focus on Boba. I absolutely love that shit.
What's
I don't
going
know,
on there,
man.
Lunga? What's going on
Like
there?
a bantha, like a
I know.
bantha.
And his
know.
poor veneers.
I
are
personally
showing.
think if you think, Boba Fett is going to come out of that Sarlacc and not be a changed person, I mean,
That's not the problem I had. Hold on
That
a
is not-
second.
yes.
Hold on a second.
That
is not the problem anyone had with that show.
No,
definitely
hold
the
on.
main problem people
To
have.
be
with that is that
fair,
Boba's
to be
different and
fair,
Boba's not a
The
badass.
Boba stands, the Boba stands were all about he's not a
Well.
badass. That he is right there. The Boba stands were all about he's not a badass. He's not a badass. I was fine with him changing. I was fine with him trying to take this different approach.
He's
But
still
the
badass.
way they did it, just
Yeah.
who gives a fuck about the Pikes? No one gave a shit about the Pikes. Okay,
Yeah.
who gave a shit about you? You introduced these huts that are really no one cares. Okay, and they don't care about it. And then I'm sorry, the fucking Vespa kids, the scooter kids. Okay, when I saw the girl, immediately I'm like, I'm gonna like this character. When I saw
They have like
the first
8
images,
minutes of screen time, dude.
and
Hey, she was hot
yes,
though.
and they were
I
the
liked her.
worst 8 minutes. Yes, she was. She was actually.
You're not
quite
rocking with
attractive.
all girls? Get out of here.
No,
Yeah,
yeah,
no.
y'all's
Dude, can
definition
we
of
not
attractive-
forget the cringy
It's
the
what-
cringy spin the one dude did with the
Oh,
whole
yes,
fucking
yes, okay, but
I had that shit saved as a gift someday.
You know, Anakin and Obi-Wan just sit there and flail their lightsabers without
And that's
hitting them,
Doug
right?
too.
Yeah,
Probably you love
that's
it,
kind of my
yes.
point. There's so many dumb things in Star Wars.
Okay,
that,
I will
like,
say, I know only wants to get away with this. The biggest sin that I have that makes me call this the Book of Bob, because I fathomably, I think it is my most, I don't know, it's close, but it's one of my most hated Disney Star Wars projects, is simply because of the way they did Luke Skywalker in it and the way they brought Grogu back. I thought that was absolutely horrendous. I thought Luke Skywalker's portrayal in that was on par, at the lowest bar you can possibly get, with his portrayal in The Last Jedi. I genuinely believe that. But anyways, we need to move on, so.
Yeah.
We just need to go. Lunga, can you pull up the calendar?
Oh yeah, of course.
All right, so next week, January 24th, we're going to do an Ahsoka Season 2 episode. January 31st, we're going to talk about how The Mandalorian changed Star Wars. February, a brand new month for us. We're going to have a Dave Filoni's Mandoverse movie on the 7th. And then on the 14th, it's Valentine's Day, so we're all going to go with our significant others. Me and Padme are going out to the beaches of Naboo. And I can't
he's
remember how
gonna
the
text
rest
this girl.
I
Yeah.
think the only ones doing anything at Valentine's are gonna be me and Brody. You two
Yeah.
are just sitting at home. Okay.
I'll probably go out. I'll probably go to downtown.
I might
Tulsa.
watch some Twilight, light some candles. I don't know.
You're gonna spark a bong. You're gonna eat a steak. Okay.
Hey, I will say on the 27th, I am going. The Canes Ballroom is having what they call emo night, and
Oh
yeah,
jeez.
we're gonna.
God, what is
see,
with you and emo
see what
girls?
There's something about it, man. I
I get
fell
it
for
too.
one
When I was
once,
like in
and then it
middle
was just
school,
never-
but, like,
I don't know,
You
man.
gotta move on.
I'm just.
Hey,
I am
she's
the man
gone.
who I am. All right,
How
I
she's
can't help it.
gone, all right, you gotta get on from the emo.
It's back
girls.
to
You
the
gotta
Last
move up-
Jedi analogy with the breakup.
No, you
and the
got to move up
cheating.
to the light skin, beautiful black.
You're
Don't
too much of a
text her, bro.
you're too
Don't
much of
text
a
her.
No text her.
preppy. You're too much of a preppy kid for emo girls. You can't do it, dude. You
Yeah,
just
you
can't
got
do
to
it.
do what I do. You got to smoke a cigarette in the parking lot.
You should hear my
outside of
music,
your
Lunga.
shitty car. Oh yeah, you and your rock and roll. That's gonna
Listen,
Get 'em. Let me
Yeah.
I was listening to Mike. I still listen to My Chemical Romance. I still listen to a lot of. Trust me, okay?
God.
Oh, I
See,
love
I
My
never got
Chemical
into them.
Romance.
Sorry.
Music.
Oh,
I was
you want to talk about
Avenged
emo?
Sevenfold, man. Yeah.
Secondhand
All right,
Serenade?
before-
Come on, man.
We got to close out the show, but before we do, first of all, leave a like if you're still watching in this fucking mess that we call Chatooine. But Brody, where can we find you, sir? We put your channel in the link in the description, but tell us, what are you up to? What are you doing in the Star Wars world? How does the Chatooine audience keep engaged with you?
Well, don't look at my Twitter, apparently.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, pretty much BrodieWanKenobi on everything except Instagram. I got to change that, but officially Star Wars on Instagram, and I'm just living life, just shilling it up, and just doing my thing, man. Just trying to subvert expectations and
That list subverted
Brodie,
my expectation. I will say that.
Don't feel bad because
hey, you know how to get
Goldman's
people
Twitter.
You talk about Book of Boba Fett and The Last Jedi. That's all I'm saying.
Goldman's Twitter is a fucking trash fire. So don't you just it's okay.
The fights that we have on Twitter are fucking insane. You guys should see our Discord chat. There are times where like you will open it, like poor Goldman has opened up the Discord and seen us arguing for like 2 days for just forever.
Yeah.
And then like one of us will like send a meme or something and
Yeah.
move on.
Yeah. But no, yeah, definitely follow Brodie on everything and anything. Thank you so much for coming on to the show.
Yeah, man, it's fun.
You know,
Of course,
it's
guys,
always good
of course.
to
I appreciate
bring
you
other
having me.
people. You know, misery loves company, so we want to bring you down to us. And, I did want to ask, so how the shill checks? They everyone says that these people on Twitter who like the Disney Star Wars, they get money from being
Shill
shills.
checks.
How much do they pay? Because I've been told I was a shill at times. I've been told I was the Phantom Menace at times. I have not gotten a check from Lucasfilm. Do you know who I call?
Well, I got to check the mail, but I'm pretty sure I have one on the way for that tweet that I sent earlier.
Oh,
Man, come on.
man.
Goldman has
Andor
shown,
80, I don't know if
Goldman
they're gonna
has
pay
shown
for
us
that,
the
man.
statements. Okay, Goldman has shown us the statements.
the whole reason he has Claude in the background is because they sent it to him. And they were like,
Shit.
poster?
I mean, you
Is
know,
that how you got the port?
yeah, I get free shit, you know, from them sometimes.
Yep, there you go.
right? But all right.
Oh, so there it
Admits
is. There it is.
No,
Yeah.
no.
Haven't we both had media access before? I know I haven't. I've said some dumb shit, so I don't get a shill paycheck, but I do get the shill.
Some not that long ago.
Yeah, some might be a bit of an understatement. Star Wars only.
Yeah, and it wasn't like back in the day. It was like last
This
month.
is like the other week.
Okay.
You know how many people I had in my freaking inbox? Your co-host is me. I'm like, I disagree with him fundamentally on many things. That's just how we go. All right.
Look, all I'm going to say is I may have gone too far in a few places. All right?
Yeah, just a little bit. We had to have a long conversation.
may have gone too far in a few places.
George would be proud of me, though. George loves the memes, but thank you guys so much for tuning into this very long episode of Chatooine. Thank you so much, Brodie, for joining us. If you guys want to follow him, please click the link in the description below and follow him everywhere. Follow us. Still watching, leave a like. Check us out on Spotify if you happen to catch the end of the stream, but not the beginning. And we'll see you guys next week for Ahsoka Season 2. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you all. Have a good night.